much for joining us. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We have all of our board directors in attendance, and Sanjana is joining us on the dais. If you could please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we would appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 2.01, action to approve the regular meeting agenda?
I move to approve our regular meeting agenda. Second, same.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Thank you both. Do we have any discussion?
President Roll, we were wondering about switching, so double check, 5.08 and 5.09 and 5.10. Supervisor Kelly will be presenting already on 5. Are those the two, Tara?
No, we're going to do 5.08 to follow 5.06.
Oh, okay. 5.08 up to 5.07. There we go.
Okay. Do we have any? Okay. So with that change, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 2.01 as revised, which is our action to approve the regular meeting agenda, passes 5-0. And that brings us to our public comment portion of the evening. And as you can see, we have a packed house and a lot of people who want to speak. We want to make sure that we are having the opportunity to hear as many people as possible. But as a board, we also have adopted policies years ago that dictate how we're going to run this portion of the meeting. So let me give you the rundown in case this is one of your first times being part of a school board meeting. So each person is going to be given 3 minutes per topic to comment, and a maximum of 20 minutes per any one topic will be allowed. Director Carrion, who's down here, is going to monitor each speaker's 3-minute limit, and Vice President Miller, right next to me, will keep track of our 20-minute topic limit. Speakers whose comments are less than 3 minutes in length may not defer the remaining time to others. If there are multiple speakers on one topic, speakers may be limited to points of view not yet expressed. Any person wishing his or her comment retained as part of the permanent record may submit a prepared statement to the board secretary prior to the oral presentation. The president may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Comments and concerns relative to district personnel will not be heard in public, but rather should be directed through the complaints concerning school personnel or programs, such as policy 4220. Formal presentations must be scheduled with the superintendent in writing no later than Tuesday noon, 1 week preceding the regular meeting. Per board procedure, we will not answer or respond to any questions posed by a speaker tonight, but we will make sure that you get a follow-up from us after the meeting. And in response to upcoming Open Public Meetings Act changes, we distributed written comments that we received this week prior to the meeting to all board directors via email. So I know that's a lot. It's a lot to digest, but we'll make sure that we hold your hands through it and follow our policy. So we are going to begin with our non-agenda items. So if I could please call Kyle Myers to the front of the room to discuss books in classrooms.
Thank you. I had 2 topics for tonight I want to speak for many parents about the district's following Washington State Law RCW 9688050. Not expecting you to know what it is, so here it is. Dealing depictions of minors engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Before I share the RCW language, I need to define depictions. Definition of the word depictions that I found in various dictionaries: a representation in words or images of someone or something, representation or characterization in words, description of something using words or pictures. So each of these definitions includes the use of the word words. Therefore, words can be considered depictions. RCW 9.68A050 clearly states, a person 18 years of age or older commits the crime of dealing in depictions of a minor engaged in sexually explicit conduct in the first degree when he or she knowingly develops, duplicates, publishes, prints, disseminates, and exchanges, finances, attempts to finance, or sells visual or printed matter that depicts a minor engaged in the act of sexually explicit conduct as defined in RCW 9688011, A through E, which I'm not going to go through that because it's extremely explicit and you can review it for yourself. I represent many of the parents who are asking the Tahoma School District to avoid breaking the law and to not introduce printed materials and internet materials into the classroom or school libraries that meet the definition of a violation of RCW 9688050. Instead of only reviewing books and internet materials that are included in lesson plans and libraries through an equity lens, I believe the legal lens is required as well. Tahoma School District should be focusing on policies that do everything in their power to avoid costly litigation and prevent sexualization of the children. Based on recent activity in other school districts around this topic, I would like to formally request a written statement by the superintendent and the board that states there are no written materials or delivery of links to internet materials in the school district libraries or classroom that could violate this law. Thank you.
The school board meeting is, we have to run it like a meeting, so we have to be really efficient. As you can see, we have a really long agenda. And so if you want to clap, you are welcome to do that, but if you could just keep it to a short duration, that would help us move things along. We just want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we're going to move on to Tina Descharge. She's going to be talking to us about lack of representation.
Tina Deshawn. Right. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Tina Deshawn. I am a parent of Tahoma children and a community member of Maple Valley. I'd like to start by first thanking the board and Mr. Hansen for your personal sacrifices and your dedication to our children and our community. Tonight, I'd like to speak to you about my concerns of a lack of representation of opposing viewpoints within the district. It is common knowledge that the polarization of our district has increased at an alarming rate over the last 2 years. In the 2021 general election for the Tahoma School Board, almost 46% of voters cast their ballots for a candidate who would be considered by the district to be politically right-sided. With this divide comes a need and a right for equal representation of all viewpoints and lived experiences. Just as students need culturally diverse staff, administration, and parent partnerships, they also need politically diverse ones as well. The repercussions of a lack of diverse viewpoints within our district has finally been confirmed publicly by Summit Trail Middle School and is causing emotional distress to potentially upwards of 46% of our children. At the May 31st, 2022 Tahoma School Board Working Group, the board and schools discussed one of the district's target goals of increasing a sense of belonging amongst the students. After students took part in a survey about belonging, the school made a surprising discovery. According to a direct quote by Summit Trail Middle School counselor Branda Olney, it was discovered that some very politically right-sided kiddos felt like they could not voice their opinions in school because it goes against the mainstream, and they're feeling shut down. This is the outcome of children who are not represented amongst our district employees and its partnerships. Recently, the district brought in Priest Hollins to work with a class at Summit Trail Middle School. Principal Sean Cassidy said they wanted to help students interact with others in a way that wasn't so much out of an emotional state, but really bring everyone together, bringing a sense of understanding, even though their viewpoints and their values may be different. Here's some opportunities, he says, to kind of seek middle ground and seek a level of understandings. How can we ask and expect our students to feel a sense of belonging and feel free to voice their opinions in a school setting when their like-minded parents, educators, and community partners are silenced and excluded from all district committees and boards? The district is asking something of our students that they themselves are refusing to do, being willing to actively seek out and appreciate opposing viewpoints and lived experiences. In 2020, the district surveyed over 1,000 students, parents, staff, and community members to create Tahoma's strategic plan for success called Tahoma Cares. This number, 1,000 participants in a city of 28,000, proves my point that the district is relying on a small minority to create policies and procedures for an entire district. It is crucial for our district to collaborate with all viewpoints in order to create a place for our students where they feel like they belong, can accomplish anything, learn to collaborate, eliminate injustice, and achieve total wellness. My question for each board member:
Thank you, Tina. We have to cut you off.
how do you intend to diversify your district, including district committee policies? How will you ensure that there's a full spectrum
We have 3 minutes to do your time.
of opposing viewpoints?
In respect for other people.
I will reference Laura Myers at the last
So the
board meeting
speaker
with
has
40
to
seconds
stop so
over.
we conduct the meeting in a business-like manner, and if the speaker chooses not to, we will have to have.
Okay, so are you discriminating against me?
So I'm asking you again to stop. We'll have to.
Why don't you fix the speaker so you can hear?
Be simple. President Tahoma, can I recommend we take a recess?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we're going to step out.
You're cutting off, we can't hear it.
Sorry, my name's Zach. I'm a nobody here. I'm just a parent here, just like you. Can I just get a pulse while they're in on what our goal is tonight individually? Because I do have something I would like to say, and I'm worried the way it's headed that I may not get an opportunity to say it. I like what you have to say. That's similar to some stuff I want to say as well. But I just want to know, are we here to shut this down, or is this something that we're here to talk? So I really would like to talk. I'm here to shut it down. To be honest,
No, we're not.
Okay. But I don't like that either. I don't want to hear everybody talk. I think the best chance we have going forward, in my opinion, is to be able to talk, get our voice out, and then move on. Because I don't know how we're going to
Fix the speaker.
I agree. No, I'm with you. I don't know if I can do that. And maybe they can. But I would like to talk, but if somebody else, that's all. That's fair. All right. Thank you. Yeah, no, I know. I'm with you.
Yeah, and also that board meeting, Laura Myers is allowed to go 40 seconds over. So what's your explanation on that? Do you have one? Then your comment.
I like to say something. Mark the speaker that lets you out center, you just stand right in the middle of it. Go left or right.
That's good advice.
That's the way.
I didn't know that.
I'm clearly not a speaker.
It's all good, but yeah, sometimes it's just exactly about the actual equipment, not.
That's off. That's me. I'm honestly not worried about that.
Yeah.
Mine is the cutoff of me and not the cutoff of somebody in the last minute.
Yeah.
You want to keep the mic for it to pick you up. When we're singing, no,
I can't wear lipstick, because it goes all over my face.
everybody, you basically eat the mic for it to pick you up.
That might be a little
Not that.
Check. That works? So is it going in and out? Check one, check out.
Yes.
Do you have a handheld by any chance? That COVID.
Yeah, you can white side. I'm sorry, with Marie's.
Hey, can everybody hear me? So for the record, I'm Sean Kelly, the Supervisor of Operations for the Tahoma School District. The board's going to come back out in a few minutes. They're going to continue the public comment. You get 3 minutes for public comment. Okay? If you run out of time, you're done at your time, and you can email the school board and get your public comment record there. If we have any more disturbances, they're going to adjourn back in there, and then they're going to go to an online meeting. Okay? It's not that they don't want to hear from you, we have to keep it in a professional manner.
Unless you're Laura Myers, right?
Let me finish, please. We now have students that we're going to give public comment here to not feel comfortable giving public comment right now. Okay? We're here for the students, just like all of you are here for the students. I have students in this system, a student system. We all need to be heard, we have a right to be heard, but we have to do it in a professional manner. Does that make sense? Thank you very much. So we all up for trying it one more time? We get a thumbs up on that? Any questions?
Can we encourage the students, so I'll encourage them.
Yes, yeah, if you're a student here, please, we want to hear student voices here. That's a high priority for the board, is to hear student voices. So thank you very much.
Check one. That's doing the same thing, kind of?
Stand back with that. You can see in the
Check one. Is that better? Like, can you stand back a little bit?
Hello.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Just make sure that you stand back a little bit from.
So everything we said, don't listen to.
I want to be in front of you. Using the microphone portion.
You get Pat, there's the AV.
Cameron, that's it. Thank you. Okay, we are going to reconvene at 6:49 p.m. And our next public comment is from Rainey Rigby, and she's going to be talking about the threat assessment and campus safety.
Keep a good distance.
Hey, okay, here, all right. Okay, I would like to address the topic of threat assessment, policies and protocols, and school building safety. There is much more to be discussed and bring to attention than my 3 minutes will allow, as evident by my recent 7-page letter to the board and ongoing communications with the district for the last several months. First, the events that occurred regarding the 317 threat to Rock Creek Elementary have shown the need for the Tahoma School District to, 1, have more transparent, forthcoming, and timely communications related to school safety threats, especially gun violence threats, and 2, evaluate the need and its responsibility to implement more thorough threat assessments and respond appropriately to the nature of the threat. On the morning of 317, the district became aware that a local juvenile made a threat expressing a desire to shoot up Rock Creek Elementary and also target a specific staff member. The district, however, only notified parents and staff at 8:45 a.m. that morning, when staff and students are either already at campus or arriving to campus. The district also notified that, quote, a threat by a former Rock Creek Elementary student against a current school staff member, and, quote, this was deemed a non-credible threat, end quote. And there are many unanswered questions after reviewing the police report. The district did not disclose that the nature of the threat was to shoot at Rock Creek Elementary. Parents and staff members deserve and need the full truth, including the full and accurate description of any threat, including all the intended victims and the type of threat, to determine what is the best level of action to take regarding their children's and their own safety. Regarding campus safety and security, there are imminent safety concerns that need immediate addressing to ensure the safety of our children, educators, and staff. And this includes, and certainly not limited to, 1, the necessity for fully locked and secured entrances to all Tahoma schools, including elementary, middle, and high school. And 2, locking all portable buildings. Some schools have only very recently started locking some portable doors, while some still remain unlocked. Currently, only the high school has a fully locked and secured buzz entry front entrance. Elementary and middle schools simply reroute visitors through a vestibule to an unlocked office door to then another unlocked door, providing access to the remainder of the school. In light of the new equity policy being read tonight, is this not inequitable? How do you choose which students and staff are worth locking a door for and which are not? A welcoming environment can absolutely be achieved with secured entrances, as it's not dependent on a door lock. It has everything to do with the people inside the building. These are the students, teachers, the staff, and their interactions, their communications, and their attitudes. We have to shift from the open and welcoming environment to a safe and welcoming environment. And lastly, some district employees have referenced that these concerns and pleas from parents and staff are being reactive or emotional to current events. Let me be clear. This is infuriating and offensive.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. And we will be talking about campus building safety.
Thanks for giving me this time today. Anyone hear me okay? Yeah. All right. So this is a little bit of payback on my wife. We're deeply concerned about the security at our schools in the Tahoma district. And this really just focuses on 2 main things. Locking all our school doors at all our schools, and also the portable doors. I believe providing all children, staff, and teachers a securely locked building in which they can learn, teach, and grow should not be a topic of debate, nor should it be a discretion of individuals or a result of a vote of a quarterly safety committee. However, those safety committees should be in place and maybe even more frequently meet. This should be a standard written into policy. We lock our homes and our cars to protect our assets and the people inside, even without an imminent threat of intrusion or criminal activity directed to us personally, but because of our knowledge, the failing to do so would provide a crime of opportunity. Our children are our most valuable assets, so why would we not do the same for them? We need a security standard for all schools, not just high schools, that does not allow an individual to decide when or whether entrances or portable doors should be locked, or the ability to disable security features in place. It is time to rethink and look at, once again, our district security our district security needs to be addressed, the current and evolving security issues. Unfortunately, it's clear that our schools have become much more frequent targets of violence, including schools of all grade levels, and violent acts being committed by both current students and non-students. This is the reality in which we live, that what may not have been necessary years ago is necessary now. Yes, there are many issues that require legislative and cultural changes that affect school safety, but let us be proactive in and start with what we can do here locally. Provide locked and school bus entry for all our buildings, not just high schools. Lock all the portable doors, regularly review and update our safety measures and protocols, not just in the wake of recent tragic events. I would exceed it if a serious incident happened at one of our schools in our district, which I had one girl in Rock Creek and 3 more on the way. And if we did nothing now to prevent a future incident, that would be shameful and disheartening. So we need to address the locked door policy and make those policies binding. Thanks for the time.
Here, she's a community member and she's going to discuss the equity policy. So Ursula.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the equity policy under consideration. My name is Ursula Payne. I'm a resident of Maple Valley, have been for 40 years. I'm a Tahoma School District retired teacher. I taught elementary grades in 4 schools over the 26 years of my 26-year career. Over these 26 years as a classroom teacher and as a peer educator, I participated in many district developments of a variety of innovative instructional programs and policies. So I speak from that perspective. But I also speak as a grandparent of 2 Tahoma High School students. I continue to be aware of and am interested in Tahoma program and policy. Over many years, Tahoma School District has developed numerous innovative programs and procedures. I mention this background in order to highlight the reality that Tahoma School District has often been a leader in our local community and beyond. So by supporting this equity policy under consideration, Tahoma School District has again an opportunity to set an example to students, families, and educators everywhere. With its equity policy in place, Tahoma School District will clearly display our commitment to future-ready conditions for students. In the world in which we live, being future-ready means truly respecting, understanding, and supporting every individual student. I want my grandchildren to grow and learn in a community that values and supports inclusion, fairness, and equity. I want my grandchildren and all children to live in a school community where every student is seen, heard, recognized, and valued. I want my grandchildren to develop in a school district where educators implement the value of equity in instruction and personal relationships. As I said earlier, Tahoma School District in my 40 years here has always been a leader in doing what's best for students. I urge you, as board members, as a school district, to continue to lead, to prepare our students to be truly future-ready. Tonight, I urge you to adopt and support the equity policy that you are considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. Welcome student in our community to the front of the room.
Sorry, I'm tall. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, well, hi everyone. My name is King Veer and I'm a junior at Tahoma High School. And I will also just be speaking in favor of the equity policy. So ever since way back when, in the days of online school, we began the equity board, and I've been working on that since freshman year, along with my other peers and classmates. And just for me personally, I think it is so monumental that we are now in a position where this is something that can be enacted into our society and into our small community, and something that can be truly the basis for real and genuine change. And just for me personally, I think that I've been in Tahoma since 6th grade, and just since then, there have been some situations in which I have noticed firsthand and upon others the deleterious impacts upon the lack of diversity, and included with that, the negative effects that come with a lack of policy and a lack of support for minority students. And I know that coming from Maple Valley, which is a community with about a 75% white population, there isn't much of a regard for minorities. And I felt this firsthand where I've dealt with racism, which sometimes turns verbal and most unfortunately physical. And I think that that is something very important for us to assess. Number one, as individuals, and number two, in our community as a whole. I mean, just that idea of feeling alienated or feeling alone when you open up your history book, you don't see anyone that looks like you, or you look in the yearbook, you're the only one with a turban, or in your classroom, or even in this boardroom right now, there's a significant lack in diversity in it. And I think that that's something that we need to work towards solving and work towards supporting. And I know that there are often times in which the minority students at Tahoma High School, there is a lot of polarization in the beliefs of people, and this sometimes does turn into a physical calamity, which is something I have experienced myself. And I think that just in that sense, it is so crucial for us to support and kind of step outside of our own mindsets and just keep an open mind when we explore the equity policy tonight. And just speaking more on the equity policy, I know that for me firsthand, the impact that it can have upon minority students, I think that that could hopefully be perceived within me when I think as, you know, one of the only turban students at Tahoma High School, it is just so important, in my own opinion, to be a trailblazer for the next individuals and to kind of leave a lasting legacy of change that can hopefully make the lives of other minority students better. And I personally would not want anyone to have to go to school afraid of if they're going to be hate crime, or afraid of if someone's going to say some snarky statement about their immigration status, or the fact that they have a little bit of an Indian accent when speaking. And I think that we all just need to be cautious of that tonight, and thank you so much.
Hello, okay. My name is Faith Bamba, and tomorrow I'm going to be graduating from Tahoma High School. I've been in the district for 12 years now, and I think as I look at my entire experience at Tahoma, what really sticks with me, instead of the acronyms like the 3 C's and all the different sayings that we have in Tahoma, what really sticks with me are just the experiences that I've had and my interactions with not only the students but the staff that I have at Tahoma. And I think as a student, and looking at the students who are going to be coming through here, my little sister, she's going to be in high school next year. I think it's so important that we have our equity policy as something that the students, the staff can rely on, something that can ensure their protections in the school. I know that as a minority student, sometimes it feels like you don't have anyone in your corner, and sometimes it feels as though you have nobody to reach out to. So having something concrete that we know is there for us to protect us, to keep all of our students feeling as if there is someone that they can rely on, that their staff, the people educating them, will continuously work in order to support them, is so impactful. I just, thinking of what my little sister is going to encounter in her years at Tahoma High School, thinking of what I've gone through, the change that I've tried to make, it means a lot to me to make sure that our staff is intentional and our staff is there to support the students that are here. And so it's just being part of the equity committee, I just want to make sure that our efforts are not gone to waste, and that our staff is doing everything that they can in order to protect our students and to make sure that Tahoma is a place that everyone feels belonging and feels included in. So, thank you.
Crandall. Crandall?
All right, good evening. My name is Dana Crandall. I'm a Maple Valley resident, mother of 3 Tahoma students, and I'm the PTA president at Summit Trail Middle School. And on behalf of myself and the many advocates who could not be present this evening, I would like to express how excited we are that the equity policy is ready for approval tonight. Our neighboring school districts of Issaquah, Kent, and Bellevue, as well as many others in Washington State, all have established equity policies, and it is past time for Tahoma to join them. Approving policy 3203 tonight will help our district move forward with its 5-year goals. It will help more students and families feel like they are welcome to Tahoma. The very fact that this policy has received so much attention is proof of how much we need it. And your leadership tonight can help the district push past discomfort and into real growth. Thank you for your time.
So my name is Patrick Kenyard. I have a son who's in the Tahoma School District. I never thought I would be involved in school board affairs, but I can't tell you the exact moment that changed. My son used to love school. He loves learning. He loves being with his friends at school. That began to change last year. The moment he said to me was, "Dad, all they do is everyone argues about politics in class. The teachers do nothing about it. I just put my head down and wait it out." His educational experience has become adult politics being played out in classrooms. Policy, your equity policy is fatally flawed because it doesn't meet its stated goals, because of the inflammatory language that it uses. The terms that you are using in this policy mean very different to different people. Equity to some people means raising up marginalized people, being anti-racist. That's good. But to others, because it's racially and ethnically based, it's cultural Marxism and also racism. So you have two sides who are going to look at each other and accuse each other of being racist. Institutional oppression. To some it means tearing down those barriers meant to hold specific people down. Legitimate. But others recognize that's the foundational principle of critical theory. When you cannot agree on the language, you have bad policy. This policy will embolden political activists to bring their agendas into the classrooms. At the same time, it's going to confirm the fears of all the parents that think that they're getting more indoctrination in education. The other flaw of policy is that it assumes a dichotomy. It assumes that there's oppressed and therefore oppressors, that there's victims, therefore victimizers, good guys and bad guys. And the bad guys, we know the bad guys because of privilege and implicit bias. Listen, common sense should be tell you that this is going to divide people. It's not going to unite people. It creates tribes. It plays to people's worst tendencies of tribalism, us versus you. Rather than creating a welcoming, supportive, safe, and inclusive environment, it creates resentment, fear, and fighting. Opposing this policy does not mean it's a denial of marginalized people. Okay? As individuals, as a community, we should always seek to do better than our predecessors. This policy is not better. We need to stop. Let's not continue to bring political fights of adults to our children. Let's not use highly charged political language in our school policies. We can do better. We must have the courage to do better and be better. Thank you for your time.
I hope I'm reading this correctly. Sinar? Sinar.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. My name is Sinar Hidayatullah. I'm from Indonesia. I have become a citizen the last 6 years. I've been living in the United States for 20 years. One thing that I have to say about America is I'm so proud because this country is a land of opportunity. However, tonight I would like to voice my concern about the equity policy. I have experienced in my country that competition is best to be given to those who can do what is the best. I'm all for equal opportunities for all sexes, religions, races, and ideology, of course, as long as it's not against United States or a violent ideology. But the idea of hiring or giving priority based on anything, qualifications, is or prioritizing candidates or prioritizing people based on certain bias is far from equal. So what we see here is favoritism. Showing favoritism is not a good example and legacy to pass on to the next generation. Passing or approving this policy is only deepening the wound that has been hurting our nation lately and widening the gap of confusion or experience by the young generations. You would ask me, how am I saying this policy is biased? Go read through it with open mind yourself. And sadly, if you look at it carefully, it is actually in opposition of our nation's fundamental value, the Declaration of Independence, that is to give everyone a chance to pursue their dreams. After all, America is a land of chance and opportunity for everyone. Lastly, I would share these thoughts for us to ponder. Bias and prejudice are attitudes to be kept at hand and not to be avoided. That's by Charles Curtis. I know you would want to believe me, I know you want to believe me, but the highest form of human excellence is to question oneself and others. That's by Socrates. Let us not avoid the healthy way of criticism, for that is the best way for us to increase our quality as human beings. When you deliver critics with expectation of building up and uplifting, the result usually is positive. All opinions are equal, some are very great deal, more robust, sophisticated, more supported in logic and argument than others. That's by Douglas Adams. The thought is to understand which opinion is objective and which one is not requires kindness and desire to help one another. Do we have that? If we're thinking about that, so go be it. Thank you very much.
Real quick, I just want to thank the students that came up to speak so far. Very brave, and no matter what you want to say and who's opposing you, I hope you keep speaking out. So I know a lot of people are here to talk about equity, and I had a bunch of stuff in my head I was going to talk about. But just for the time, I want to focus on the security issue that's being talked about tonight. And I wanted to try and talk about something a little bit new. I know everybody has opinions about guns and laws and security and whether we lock doors, put on screen doors, what have you. But what I want to focus on is this idea of mental health as a cause. Mental health is a term that's like physical health, okay? If somebody dies of cancer, you don't say they die of physical health. You say they die of cancer. If somebody has a mental health issue, that is not a diagnosis, that is not a cause. Okay, you don't see or hear people with ADHD going and buying guns and shooting up the school, right? So we need to be careful in the stigma that we attach to mental health because it makes it hard for students to speak out if they are having a diagnosis and they need help. Okay, that's the first thing. The other thing I want to talk about with security is that underlying causes are not being talked about in the heat of the moment. And one of those that is rampant in our school system, I have an elementary school student and a middle school student, is the volume of bullying that happens in all levels of the school. You would be amazed at the level of bullying that a first grader will do on another first grader, or a fifth grader will do on a fifth grader, or worse, a fifth grader will do on a first grader. Okay? It's horrible. Just the other day, my daughter was walking through the lunchroom at the middle school and was told to kill herself by somebody she didn't even know. and that happens all the time, okay? We need a zero tolerance bullying policy in this district, okay? We need to make sure that it is not okay to do that. It is not okay, wherever you're learning to hate, you leave it at the door. You don't bring it into school. As long as that's not happening, we're going to have kids that feel unheard. We're going to have kids that feel unsafe. We're going to have kids that are at a wit's end because they're not getting help from the adults that are supposed to protect them, whether that's at home or whether that's at the school. And I know you can't do anything about it at home. Okay, so we can't do something about school. So as long as there's a zero bullying policy that gets enforced equally, right, then that is a major step. That's going to help make our schools more secure. And that is a more regular issue than the emotional shootings that happen. Well, those are horrific. There's threats to our students that happen every single day, and we need to stop those now. Thank you.
Utula, Youth Health and Staff.
Thanks everyone for your time. Not as prepared as I'd like to be, but I want to say thank you all for being here. Obviously, give me a chance to speak to you, give me a chance to listen to what I have to say. I know this is obviously a whirlwind. I did send an email earlier, but I'm sure you probably have about 400 of them. So I'll kind of cut out some of that, but hopefully my name will ring a bell later. I just want to talk about some of the things that are obviously been talked about today. The inclusion is policy 3203. I've only been at one other board meeting. I have 2 full-time jobs between kids, volunteering with the PTO, trying to help out in the community. I just have a hard time coming in, but I have been trying to be involved as much as I can, do as much study as I can. I was fortunate enough to be part of the equity committee that met in March of 21 when we were looking at Tahoma's 5-year plan. So we had these Zoom meetings, and I was fortunate to sit in those and kind of see the initial catalyst and framework for where we were headed. There wasn't room on the committee for me, but at least I was expressing interest and I wanted to be a part of that. Just a quick background, it's only to try to humanize it a little bit. As a child, you wouldn't know it looking at me now, but I was beaten, bullied, beaten mentally, physically quite often from K to about 7th grade until finally I grew into this. It was a little harder to do that. I always say that because I've always been the person to look out for the one hanging on the fringes, the one that everybody's forgot about, that seems to just live in the corner of our lives. I've been a military officer, was for 20 plus years. I've led men and women all over the world. And I only say that because I understand the diversity and the value of thought and culture and experience that it brings to a team. The policies going forward, and again, I say all that not to make this about me, but spiritually because I want you to hopefully, humanize what's going on and stand, and listen to what I have to say next. The policy as it stands today, it's not ready. In all of my experience and everything I know on how to make things right and how to help people get to where they want to be, this policy is not there. It's missing one very important thing in my opinion, and that's common ground. I think this policy, I believe, passed today, I think it will only mask what the true issues are, and it's going to tear potentially this small social fabric that we have left, keeping this community together. One of the biggest things we can do to get success for our children is to provide a strong community where we all support. We all agree on the same things. We've just lost we kind of got lost in the fray about picking sides and how to get there. I think we can all disagree on the means as long as we all agree on the ends. And that's something that I think everybody in this room agrees upon. But the question is, how do we get there? I completely lost track of where I was in this, so I apologize for that. But here's where I'll try to end it. I don't know if it's even possible to delay this vote. I just found out about this last night. That's another unfortunate thing that I feel like they should have had more time and more thought. But saying no doesn't mean you don't agree with the policy. Saying no doesn't mean that you don't think there's barriers we can knock down. And saying no doesn't mean that they're right, you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. It just means it's not right and we need to do it right and it needs more time. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Paul Martin. I have been in the Maple Valley community for 22-ish years. My son was Maple View Middle. My daughter is at Shadow Lake. I'd like to address the equity issue. What I want to start by saying is that there is nothing that equity will accomplish that equality cannot. So we have to start by asking ourselves, what are we actually trying to accomplish? Part of the reason that we've even gotten to this situation today with this policy and these discussions is because some very serious word games have been played, namely the redefining of equality. Today, when we hear equality as opposed to equity, what those in favor of equity will say is that equality means we have to do the same thing for every person. But that is not what equality has ever meant. What equality has historically and always meant is that we will not deny services, we will not deny opportunities to adults or students on the basis of race, gender, ethnicity, religion, background. That is what equality has always meant. So if we need equity, what we're saying is we actually are denying services to students on some of those bases. And we're actually looking at kids and saying, no, I'm sorry, you're from a minority family. We're not going to get you the resources we need. Are we doing that? The answer is, of course not. That's patently absurd, right? So what are we actually trying to achieve with equity? I think the answer comes in the very document that's been sent out with this policy. When we get to the very first bullet point, it states that what we're trying to do is to narrow the gap between the highest achievers and the lowest achievers. It's very interesting. It doesn't say that we're trying to help every student achieve their very highest potential. What we're trying to do is to narrow the gap. I think about where this will take us a few years from now. Think about trying to explain this to a kid. Let's call her Sophia. And a few years from now, Sophia is asking, how do we get to a point where my race or my gender or my ethnicity is the first thing they see and the first thing they talk about? And what we would have to say honestly is that we adopted policies that determined our priorities, that determined our staffing, hiring decisions, that determined our curriculum. And that priority was not, little Sophia, that you would achieve your very highest potential. But little Sophia, that you wouldn't achieve that much more than other people. That is fundamentally flawed. It is broken. I know there's a tremendous amount of pressure on you to adopt these policies tonight. As the former speaker said, we are not ready for this. And part of the reason we're not ready is we have not identified what the real problems are. We have a limited set of resources, right? All school districts do throughout the nation. The question is, are we denying the resources that we do have to kids on the basis of their race or their ethnicity or their gender or their family status? If you would agree with me that we're not denying those services, then there's absolutely no reason we need to install equity to narrow the gap so our high performance achievers are affected. Thank you.
Good evening, school board directors and Superintendent Hanson. I'd like to talk about school safety tonight. In the wake of the Uvalde school shooting and the threat to our own Tahoma district, parents and community members have shared an increased concern about the safety and security of our schools. I would like to encourage our district to spend the summer months reviewing building security, including ensuring that all classrooms on our campuses have interior door locks and that our campuses have solid fencing and single access points. Some of our schools, as others have discussed, do not have locked entrance doors. I urge the district to consider installing locked entrances on our campuses to ensure the safety of our students and staff. This is commonplace among many schools, and Tahoma should be no different. As we have seen countless times across our country, no community is immune to the danger of gun violence on school grounds. While it is nice to imagine it could never happen here, we must instead be proactive and keep students and staff safety a top priority. Feeling safe at school is vital to learning. Another simple but critical safety measure I urge our district to take is to send out safe firearm storage educational information to families.
In nearly 80% of cases of school shootings by perpetrators under 18, the gun came from home or the home of a friend or family member. According to a study by the University of Washington, in Washington State, we continue to see a large proportion of the community storing guns unlocked. Nobody wants their gun to be used in a tragedy, but many people do not understand the risks of unsecured storage. Safe storage significantly reduces the risks of school shootings, unintentional shootings, and youth suicide. More than 50% of adolescent suicides are carried out with guns from the victim's home. Preventing unsupervised access to guns by youth is a community effort, and our district can advance this effort by simply sending out safe storage communication to all Tahoma families. Safe storage saves lives. The measures I'm advocating for tonight are evidence-based practices for reducing gun violence on school grounds. Just as a layered approach was adopted in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, so too should safety measures concerning gun violence on school grounds, starting with preventative measures like safe storage education. Thank you for your time.
Check-in with Vice President Miller. How are we doing on time for topics?
We are through the 20-minute limit on equity.
Okay, and I have one more person on our list for public comment who did not mark the topic of their public comment. Valerie Paganelli, did you have a non-equity comment you wanted to make?
It crosses over more than one agenda item.
Okay, can you refrain from talking about equity? Can we do that, and then we can have you come to the front?
I would decline to give public comment if I can't offer my perspective on that agenda.
Okay, thank you. If we did not get a chance to get to your public comment, we still would love to hear from you. So if you could please send us an email. I know that may not be the mode of communication that you would prefer, but we would love to hear from you. And so if you could send us an email, that would be great. And Valerie, because we're out of time on equity, if you are not able to give a comment without addressing equity, then we cannot have you speak. So perfect.
I can
you can
expectations.
Okay, perfect. So no equity. Okay.
So I, as a recently resigned school board director, had a couple of associations and responsibilities, one of which was liaison to our student school board representatives. And given they are being honored here tonight, I wanted to be sure I came and expressed my thanks and appreciation and celebrate you and hold you up for the service that you have given and the volunteer time that you have offered as a voice of the student body. It has been my pleasure to know you, to work with you, to mentor you, and to guide you, and to be just a little small part of your Tahoma School District experience. And I want to say that I believe you're going to go forward and do great things and represent Tahoma well, and encourage you to come and share with us what you are learning and how we prepared you for those learnings. One of my other liaisons was to a topic that is being addressed here tonight. I will not use the language, but what I will offer as a board is when decisions are getting made, and when I used to sit in a seat of those decision making, if one board member on a particular topic of such substantive nature is one or more is not fully grounded in what they need in order to fully support the direction that the board would like to go, I would encourage to push the pause button and allow for that dialogue to take place, allow for individuals to explore, and allow for information to be presented in order for it to be a sound, solid, unanimous decision on a topic of great import. If that cannot be the case for some reason, obviously important issues always feel better when they have a unanimous vote. I would also encourage, if you're not ready and the colleagues that you work with are ready, do not be afraid to say no and give an opposing voice and give the reasons why. If certain items do move forward, I also encourage them to be looked upon again in short order, as opposed to being approved and then set aside for other business. Take time to make sure it's working. Take time to make sure the words are meaning what you intended for them to mean, and the community is being served in a way that you intended for them to be served. Because the seat that you sit in, there are a lot of people who gave up very important time in their day. Mine being, I have a UW graduate that I'm celebrating, and they're currently celebrating without me. And I know everyone else here has a lot in their lives too. Thank you for your service. Be brave.
Which is our student board representative report. Sorry about that. So for our student board report tonight, this will be the last one with the graduating seniors. So on our first agenda is the speech and debate nationals tournament, which is currently being held in Kentucky right now. I'm just going to list the names of students that are participating in the competition, which is, I'm so sorry to whoever's listening.
You want me to list them then?
Yes, please.
All right, so I'm one of the debate captains, so I've been awake since 7:30 trying to coach these people in Lexington, Kentucky. So the people currently competing at nationals are Jay Simon, Tahoma, DT Rana, Sriman Rosa, Shravia, Hannah Andrews, and am I missing anybody?
Yeah, did you say Jay Simon?
I started off with it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're welcome. Got it. So they are competing currently right now, and it's a really big achievement for those individuals, and just best of luck to all of them. And next is our students from our district. For the district, there is a students from district had an art featured at the art show this weekend by the Maple Valley Creative Arts Council. That's just a big achievement for the students who are participating. I didn't get access to who participated. Oh, which you guys.
Okay, I was also there. So that involves students from all across the district. It was not just high school students, elementary school students from elementary schools across the district had their art shown there, as well as middle school students. And then lastly, high school students. And this was not just sort of saying, oh, look at the school students. This was being put on aside from professional artists in the Maple Valley community and putting them at equal stature to them.
Yeah, it's a really great achievement for anyone participating in that. Also, there was the Maple Valley Days, as you guys might have known, and just a couple of students in the Tahoma's area that participated was the robotics band, and that's what I know for so far. That's what I've been a part of, so I know, and I've seen them go through the parade and just have their booths and set up and just talk about why you should join or advertise different things. And lastly, high school graduation. That's tomorrow. If you didn't know. We're very excited to celebrate, though. Yeah. So agenda item 5.01 is actually moving on to a different section of our meeting. This is the presentation, discussion, and action item portion. And so as we move into this next section, I just want to give you a heads up about the protocol that we're going to be following for the next little bit. So each of our fellow board directors have agreed to use round robin to ensure that each member has equal opportunity to speak. We will keep our discussion length per agenda item to 20 minutes, which I will monitor, and individual board members' discussions to 3 minutes per agenda item, which Mrs. Wheeler is going to monitor for us. Each director's time will begin with the first word they speak and will continue through the responses that are provided. So that brings us to agenda item 5.01, which is honoring our 2021-22 student board representatives. And as you know, elevating student voice has been a top priority for our school board, and so we have been very excited to have our student representatives with us this year. And I'd like to invite Vice President Miller to take over this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Tremendous team that we've had this year. As you can see, they work really well together. They're passing those back and forth. It's like they've done this before. Well done. For those of you out there that haven't had the pleasure to meet these amazing individuals, I just wanted to introduce them briefly. Achu Shabbat is graduating tomorrow, as was mentioned. He's also the salutatorian for the class of 2022, and he's going to be heading to the University of Washington to study mathematics. So. To my left is Sanjana Sanjay, and also graduating tomorrow. She's not only highly decorated for her academics, but also for her incredible investment in community service. We're grateful for that. She is off to Gonzaga University. And not able to join us tonight, or at least I don't see her up front, is Olivia Tamer, another senior graduating tomorrow, attending Pacific Lutheran University next year to study engineering and environmental studies. So if you're out there, Olivia, big thank you. And then we also have two returning board members, student board representatives rather, Madison Bennett, who's right here, and Aditi Rana, who was mentioned, is in Lexington doing the speech and debate nationals. Our rising seniors that we return to this role next year, we're super excited to have your contributions and have your voice, so thank you for that involvement. These 5 student board reps have done such a marvelous job in this role. They've been present and vocal at these meetings. They've been involved in committees and events. Their predecessors, the class of 2021, did a great job reinventing this role, but this group has taken it an additional step. They've been so vocal and insightful in our meetings and work studies. On a rotating basis, we've invited them to join us up here. Sanjana's up here tonight with us, which has been great. You both, all of you, have just had tremendous commitment and dedication to this role. You put your hand in the air and said, I want to help. You've been there when we needed you, no matter what it was and what time it was, even in the last week. You all have been so involved, and we're so grateful for you. You are going to go off and do some wonderful things. We're excited to hear about those. So don't be shy. Please share back with us what you're up to. You left a really nice legacy and a building block for your future colleagues. So on behalf of my colleagues, thank you so much.
Thank you all. We will move on to agenda item 5.02, which is introduction of our 2022-23 student board representatives. Last week, Vice President Miller and Director Carrion interviewed a large group of very capable students, and they have made their selections for our representatives for next year, and so they're going to announce that tonight.
You are, yeah, thank you. So you're right, over the last few weeks, we've had this interview and application process. Big thank you to high school leadership instructor Ryan Simpson for getting the word out and coordinating everything in the building. Thank you to Tamara for coordinating all the interviews here. Appreciate that. And thank you to Mr. Carrion for helping with the interviews. And also thank you to the exiting student board reps who also helped in the interviews. Incredibly insightful. So glad that you were there, and we appreciate that. So really excited to announce 3 new student board representatives for our crew. And they're all here tonight. I had a visual on all 3 of them, at least a little while ago. Hopefully they're still here. Olivia Kaiser is the rising junior. Is involved in cross-country, track, and orienteering. She loves reading, history in particular, aspires to be a lawyer. She's active volunteer in her church, and we're excited to have her join the group. Next is Slayton Cooper. Rising junior. Slayton is the incoming junior class vice president. He's a self-proclaimed nerd, loves neuroscience, tutors other students in a variety of subjects, loves soccer. He's involved in a variety of clubs, and as you may recognize him, as he was here a few weeks ago when the astronomy club was here for their charter. So welcome, Slayton. And third is Emma Schlut. Stand up, thanks. Will be a senior next year. She's involved in club swim teams, has been for the last 8 years, incoming vice president of the National Honor Society, and is planning to pursue a science-based major before her college. She's committed to bringing the student voice to this work, and we're thrilled to have you here, so thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you up here next year.
That's right.
We will move on to agenda item 5.03, which is action to approve Tahoma High School WISE Club. So may I please have a motion to approve agenda item 5.03, action to approve the THS WISE Club.
I move to approve the THS Wise Club.
And I second the same.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Tahoma High School chemistry instructor Melissa Mackey and students are going to join us to present and answer questions from the board. And we actually have a real treat tonight because Sanjana is going to be presenting. So if you want to actually step over to the podium, you're welcome to do that.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Sanjana. I am past president. We elected new officers for the next year, and I'll just mention their names right now. The president for next year is Tamar Rasmussen. I am so bad at her last name. And then Shauna Sanjay is the VP, and the secretary and treasurer is Elizabeth. I don't know her last name, so not that. Okay, so Wise Club is Women in Science and Engineering, if you didn't know. And I think Wise Club is an important club at our high school, and it's been a part of our district, our high school since 2017. Yes, 2017, and it's pretty new. It's just during COVID, we were supposed to get it approved before COVID happened, and then everything happened, and we never got a chance to come in person and get our club approved. So what is WISE? It provides us learning opportunities and women in science and engineering opportunities to learn more from each other. And, I can use this, sorry. Okay, so it provides learning opportunities and learning about different science disciplines, so math too, and just learning and enriching yourself and enriching the students that join the club and who want to learn more. And it also helps us to interact with other young individuals who are interested in science and engineering and maths, and just help them to get a broader understanding about how and what actually science is, and like what different paths we can take to achieve different goals we have. And now next on to our labs. This is a big part of our club and how we run meetings and what engages the students in coming. So what we can learn from labs is how just learning more about science, actually. And in chemistry, it engages the students in finding something exciting to do during power hour too. And it can help ignite different passions in STEM for students who don't know what they're interested in STEM, or just, oh, I liked how biology class how we did this project, or I liked how in chemistry we did this experiment and it gave this weird reaction. And one of the labs we did this year was Penny Lab, and Miss Mackey is our advisor. Yeah, we are.
She asked me to step in. These girls have done 100% of everything for this club. This is probably the most I've done as an advisor to show up here tonight. So honestly, kudos to these kids. So bringing with me my chemistry experience, when we had our club started, it started with an idea of networking, bringing the idea of future careers to all students, not just women, and but women in particular because of the networking and prior hurdles that prior generations had to deal with. The Penny Lab was where we explored the idea of making alloys. Material science is kind of a newfound passion of mine, and we taught them how to make an alloy out of zinc and copper, and we turned the penny from copper to zinc and then melted them together to make gold. So that was one of our activities. Oh, and then we learned about thermal shock through some materials that we had donated from a prior guest speaker who worked at 3M and was able to, she worked with the material science group, and we were able to get some materials for learning how different types of glass and crystal structures respond to heat and cold, rapid changes in that. And so again, with that, it was an unexpected, really fun experience. It was just showing like how different types of glass responded to thermal temperature changes.
And we have guest speakers. So a big part of our club, as Ms. Mackey mentioned, was the networking aspect, and how we still want to keep that engaged in with our club next year. And, oh, sorry, we forgot to touch on the last portion about American Chemical
The American Chemical Society is a membership of which I am, I keep active, and they will provide funding and chartership to new chemistry clubs. And so I approached them and I said, we have this club and we would like to affiliate ourselves with ACS. And so we're in the process of getting that affiliation with our group as well, just to, because I'm a member and I can tap into those resources that will be available to all of our students. And so I'm going to leverage that absolutely into, and that's going to be a new development. Our bylaws and constitution are almost a mirror image. So any advancements in that area will not be any effect to what we're approaching here. So.
And a big part of that, why we wanted to do that, is at the American Chemical Society Charter was because we wanted to engage the student population, not just women who are interested in hearing about how to advance yourself in a really not a stressful field, well, stressful-ish, but also a demanding career. Just to like enjoy chemistry and like science and find all the different avenues like how it can bring you joy and like help the society. So moving on to guest speakers. So guest speakers, they provide informative insight onto like what actual careers are in fields that we are interested in and how to get engaged. They also provide passion, and seeing the passion in these guest speakers actually empowers us to like pursue different fields in science. And in seeing that, we see, oh, this is actually a career that we can go into, that we can drive in, that we can make a change in. Also, it was about commitment to. Seeing these guest speakers come and speak with us during Power Hour, it actually shows how committed they are to helping the next generation of students and actually caring about the students that are coming in to make a change in their career field. Also, they guest speakers provide connections. That was a big part of networking with guest speakers. They give you access to the different career fields. If you're interested in a career field, just connecting back with them or asking how do I go about submitting an application for this really cool internship or a really cool job that I'm really interested in, but have no way of like getting into because I'm not sure where to start. And that's kind of what got us to get Liz Bander. We found her actually from a conference that we attended. It was called the UW Wise Conference, and they have it every year. It's been, I don't know how many years it's been going on for, but
Longer than when your sister came and asked if I would sponsor your club. So.
Yeah, so we found Liz Bander actually.
She was great.
She was a guest speaker on she spoke about networking and how to get into different career fields in STEM and science and how to just put yourself out there, how to engage with your community of like whatever career you're interested in having or getting or what job you want. And it kind of like opened our eyes to like how it kind of helped us to see that the issue with communication and then like trying to just push yourself into a situation that you might see as demanding or difficult to achieve as a student. But just put everything into perspective and how to like get into a field that she's in. She's actually a senior program manager at Microsoft and see that perspective of a really of a high profile career at Microsoft and any job that you want in a different career. We also had multiple others over our COVID year. We had Dr. Ursula Sim, she's the director of UPenn, and that was just really cool hearing her. She had like this really different like, trajectory in science, and it was just really nice to hear different careers that you can do in science and like how chemistry and like biomedical engineering and like different fields help you to get into kind of positions to help other students who are thinking about going to science. Yes, I kind of hit on the conferences point a little bit, but one of the main conferences that we always go to, we've been going to consecutively, is the UW Wise Conference, and UW has a really big Wise program, so we hold this conference yearly, and it's just with so many different companies and women in science and engineering, and also males too, to help and empower the next generation of women who are wanting to pursue science and engineering in a field that is kind of like, it's difficult to get in for a female. So why Wise? It's a great place to meet people who are like-minded individuals and want to actually pursue STEM. And like, you don't even know what career in STEM you want to pursue, but just having that group of individuals that are actually interested in science and like will help you to grow and build your connections and networks for future endeavors like college or whatever you choose to do after. And also, joining WISE, it's informative. Even if you don't want to pursue STEM and you just have this, oh, I like this, it's a cool concept, just joining to like, oh, to have fun with your friends or have fun with a new group of people. It's a good way to learn more, engage your brain, and to have fun with our chemistry lab next year. So, thank you for listening.
So, Sanjana, being a woman in construction, I think back to the 1990s when I was at Tahoma High School, and I think, wow, if I would have had a program where other girls were talking construction, what that could have done, that could have been that just could have been a huge benefit and great resource. So can you, if you're comfortable, speak a little bit about your own personal experience and how has this kind of helped you, your path to what you're going to want to do?
Honestly, joining WISE Club helped me to see the different careers and like how I can get do a degree in. I plan on doing computer engineering at Gonzaga University, and kind of all the different clubs I've done at Tahoma, like robotics and being a programming lead, as well as joining WISE Club and just engaging this. I've always had this interest, like liking for creating like explosions in I've done that at home and messing with different like science experiments and just doing things by myself and with friends and at school. And I think joining this club, it helped me to get a greater understanding of, and doing the courses I do at Tahoma, of why I'm interested, not just in chemistry, but I know that I love chemistry and I will always do, but I think that more computers are my forte. I think it helped me to figure out that there's not just one specific path that you have to follow in a STEM field, but you can do so many different things with like chemistry or with engineering or with math, like what she was going to pursue, and like there's so much you can do with it. It helped me to narrow my focus down.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I just love the variety of what you spoke about, the different kinds of experiences that are available for students from I'm interested in just coming to listen and learn to I want to blow stuff up to I want to explore a career and meet professionals that are in those careers and understand more about what does work look like there, and is this really interesting? I want to pursue this. Like that wide range of opportunities. Really cool. It's not just come and only serious people that want careers can join this club. It's really inclusive that way. So just thank you for that. And, it's a really neat program that you all have built and carried on. So thank you.
I would just say I've had the privilege of being your mentor this last since I've been on board, and you've been up to the office and had lunch and met some of the women up there who are working in the technology industry. And, I guess the starting point I would just say, please make sure you send me your resume, right? Always looking for really good people. It's been inspiring to be able to get to know you and to see your drive and your passion for this, and just the way that you're thinking about like mapping out what you want to do. And I remember we had a conversation, if you don't mind, about just kind of being flexible and being curious about all the things that you can do, and that was inspiring to me. And so I think if the program is any part of that, then well done. I mean, I'm excited for you to go forward. I'm excited for the people who follow you to be able to see where you go. You kind of try those paths and kind of go where you want to go. So congratulations.
Questions?
So if there are no other questions or comments, I will call for the vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 5.03, action to approve the THS WISE Club, passes 5-0. Thank you so much.
already got a gift from Miss Mackey, her being our advisor for the song, and actually finally being able to improve our club, and Connor has it with her. Appreciate it.
And Ms. Mackey, we know that you have a very busy schedule, so please do not feel that you have to stay for us. Item 5.04 is our district mechanics celebration. We are extremely excited to honor district mechanics George, Greg, and Ramona for achieving a 100% rating in Washington State Patrol's annual full fleet bus inspection. 100%. Take over this agenda item.
You bet. George, thanks for coming out. I'm going to stand and I'll project. Hopefully you can hear me. Slayton, can you hear me? I can. Okay. So this guy is kind of a big deal. Known George for a really long time, since our kids were little rugrats running around playing lacrosse together. What a lot of people don't get to hear about is the work that you and your team do just quietly in a back area that doesn't get a lot of spotlight on it. And sometimes that's good, probably, I'm guessing. But having worked in other places where things don't run as smooth as they do here, I know how important your job is. For people not to have to worry about the bus being stuck on the side of the road is a really big deal. And it's an absolute rarity for us to have any sort of transportation issues mechanic-wise. And we're just really blessed. Getting 100% on a Washington State Patrol full fleet inspection is a really big deal. So gratitude to you and the rest of the team. We deeply appreciate it. Lori, anything you want to add?
I do. Always impressed with the amount of work that 2 to 3 people can do. And we've got a fleet of vehicles and buses and different types of issues that we run across on a day-to-day basis. But what a lot of people don't do, if any of you have school district radios, if you turn your radio on at 6 o'clock in the morning and you happen to click it over to the transportation channel, and we've got all these drivers out there that are running into problems, having questions, not being able to get something to work properly on their buses, getting a little frustrated at times. And these guys, not only are they making sure that that fleet's running and ready to go, but they're answering those questions as those drivers are on the road, as they have our kiddos on their buses, making sure that they're safe, and they're the first person to jump in the vehicle and get out there when the driver can't fix it or is having an issue. So not just making sure that the vehicles are ready to go, but that our staff feel safe out there and have somebody that cares about them. So thank you.
Wow.
We will move on. Oh, I see Mayor Kelly pointing to somebody.
Greg, yes, it's your funeral mechanic. Oh, Greg is back. Greg is back there. No, okay, just Greg. Greg, thank you so much for all that you guys have done. You're deeply appreciated. So I'm not used to seeing you all dressed up.
I know, right? We clean up well.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Greg.
I'm going to extend the same invitation. We know you all have a very long day, so please do not feel obligated to stay. We are so grateful to have a chance to get to thank you in person. We are going to move on to agenda item 5.05, which is our food service department plan, and our food service supervisor, Mary Nowak, is going to join us to present and answer questions.
Well, good evening, board members, superintendent, and committee members. It is my pleasure to introduce our team consisting of Karen Olson. She's our kitchen manager at the Tahoma High School. Monica Shampoo, also at the Tahoma High School. And Melissa De La Cruz, she's our kitchen manager from Rock Creek Elementary School. Astrid Bamber is also on our team. She's not here tonight. She's recuperating from surgery. but I'd like to hand it over to Karen Olson to carry on our discussion on homework pairs. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. As a group, as a food service group, we got together in the early part of April to come up with common themes that ran through what we wanted to have our job look like, our workload look like. We kind of narrowed it down to a few specific items so that we, as a small group, could get together and come up with a mission statement for our department. So the four of us got together with Astrid, and we came up with, if you can go to the next slide.
There should be a clicker option.
Oh, here we go. These are basically our mission statement that we came up with. We're working with, we have like over 40 people in our department, and these are things that we came up together that best represented us as a department focusing on our service, who we service, and our nutritional guidelines that we have to follow.
So these are some of our goals that sort of speak to our mission statement. I'm sorry. Speak to our mission statement that we came up with some goals that we want to work towards in order to achieve our mission statement we came up with together as a group. So there's a lot up there on the screen. Do you guys have any questions for us as a team?
Of the things that are up on the screen, are there maybe a handful that you're focusing on for the next school year, the next 12 months?
Well, I think some of the things that we do always work toward and that we do really well is provide nutritious meals to all of our students with excellent service, with a lot of care. Some of the things that I think that we as a group want to sort of refocus on, especially after COVID, is sort of circling the wagons, getting back to basics, making sure that all of our new team members are trained on our nutritional guidelines that we have to meet. We've hired a lot of people over the course of COVID, and meals were free, so that's going to be changing potentially. And just sort of circling the wagons again, getting back to consistent department meetings and some employee engagement opportunities, sort of team building stuff, so that we can continue to, make sure that the people that are coming to work with us want to stay, and employee retention, stuff like that.
I could speak to your climate and culture, where it says make sure that all students feel safe, cared for, and are well fed. I had the wonderful opportunity to work in the kitchen of the high school. And what you guys are doing there, I hope is, making its way out to all of our other schools. The high schools where I visited, but those kids, when they came up, high school kids, when they came up, and there was still a time we had our masks on, when they came out to the counter to get their food, they just lit up. They knew all of the staff. They were so happy to see them. They had personal relationships with their staff members. And it gave me the chills, because I just felt like, wow, this is just another point in the kids' day where they have those relationships and they get that good feeling and they feel accepted and loved. And it's just like having a parent in the kitchen for them. And it was really huge. So whatever you're doing there, you're doing it right. And just keep it going.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question for you as well. I know that this process for buildings can be easier to do than for a department, because at buildings, people see each other every day, they come together all the time, they have a shared understanding of what their care schools would look like. What was the process like for you when you had people from different buildings coming together and working on one plan? Did you find any hurdles, or was it actually enriching and engaging? What was that like?
Well, Kyle had us get together, and he did an activity where we had to pick 10 words that represented our core values for our department, and then he made us whittle it down to 5. Then he made us whittle it down to 3. And then we used those words that we all chose from all the different sites, from Central Kitchen to the elementary schools to the middle schools, everywhere. We kind of whittled them down, and those ones, the 4 of us got together and figured out
how we can work those words into our core values and our mission statement. And that made, it kind of felt like we were talking to everybody, we were getting everybody's opinion, so that really helped out with getting it all together. It is hard when we have departments that are all over, but having something like this kind of, you can say, oh, I had something to do with that. So that helps a lot. Thank you, Tyler. Yes, thank you.
Can I share one thing? So I just want to say how proud I am of the team working in 9 different sites, 9 different buildings, and getting to come together. Sometimes they're out there on site, and being able to have the deep conversations that took place with the core values, and then working and saying this is a team thing. This isn't just a Glacier Park. This isn't just a high school. This is what their words were. It was really impressive to come together, and I just sat in the back row and watched them do the hard work. So I'm really proud of this team.
Yeah, any surprises when we went through that process that came out of that?
I would say a common theme was like we have people from different age brackets and experience and backgrounds, and when it whittled down to some of the specific words, we all kind of came together, which a lot of it was quality, friendly manner. I'm trying to think of some of the other words that came up. A lot of them, it's like, oh, that person thinks the same way I do. And, with what we do with their time. So
we all have a very high need to have relationships with the kids. Like if you talk to most of us, that's our favorite part of the job. It's not necessarily making the food, yes, because we love it, but it's really about those relationships that we can make with the kids. Like we get them for 1 second sometimes. They just come with, so addressing them by their name or however, having a little conversation.
And the work's not done. So I think you saw on your slides with board members, we still have construction, working towards the goals, getting a small group up together over the summer, and already having something on the date for August, getting bolting together and continuing to work. So definitely not going to have it under construction there for long, but we wanted to make sure the process was done the right way, not just to get something through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to do a quick check-in with our agenda. So we're moving on to, is it agenda item 5.06 then? Math.
Oh, wait, no.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So 5.06, Extended Enrichment Program Plan. And our Director of Finance and Operations, Lori Cloud, is going to join us, I believe. We have the whole team. Great.
Lori.
This is even better. I mean, we love you, Lori. We love you, yes.
I'm going to stand aside.
So this is going to feel a little deja vu because we did the same process that the food services people just did. My name is Colleen Malott, and I'm a site manager of EEP at Tahoma Elementary School. And this is my partner. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Deborah Scratch. I'm also a site manager at Cedar River Elementary School.
So we recently also got together to work on the Tahoma Cares Initiative and come up with how we feel it applies to EEP. For those of you that are out here, EEP is Extended Enrichment Program. We're the lucky people who come to school every day at 5:45. We open up and we take care of kids before school, and then we go home and do whatever it is we get to do, and then we come back when school's over and we take care of kids until 6:30. So we have very interesting lives.
And it's our bedtime right now.
Yeah. Way past bedtime. So we came together also as a large group here in this room actually, and we were given a list of words. And surprisingly enough, it was really hard to pick 10 words. Kyle did that to us too. And we did came up with 10 words, and he said, oh, okay, now pick 5. Okay, but I really like my 10 words. Okay, now pick 3. Okay. So we all did that. We boiled it way down, and then we started the work of small groups. And a small group got together, took all those compiled words, and we came up with our EEP core responsibilities, beliefs, and values. And I'm kind of really excited about what we came up with and where we want to go with what's happening in EEP and what we value. It was really interesting as a group to get together and find out that we have a lot of commonality, which I didn't really think was there, but we do. And so I'm excited to see where this takes us. We had another small group meeting, and we took this and we came up with action plans. So I'm gonna let Deborah talk about that.
Okay, so I had not heard, I've seen Tahoma Cares at different places throughout the district, and I even got a lanyard that said Tahoma Cares at the beginning of the school year, but until we engaged in this process, I didn't understand what it was. So once we delved into it, I think it was about a month ago, that we started the process, maybe 6 weeks ago. I started to get excited because it gave us, we always had a goal as a program to, as a department, to provide a quality program to these kids in our community. But this really helped us to focus on, you know, what are the core values that we have and where is it that we want to focus our energy going forward. The next step after what Colleen described was figuring out how to incorporate equity, high expectations, wellness, partnership, and climate and culture into the program. And we kind of treated that as, obviously we want all the children in our program to feel seen, heard, and valued. We want them to know that we're here for them. But we also needed to figure out how to work together as a team and really learn how to value each other, respect each other, and be there and treat each other as equals, regardless of what our role is in the program. And we're spread throughout 6 elementary schools. We don't have an opportunity to collaborate because, you know, we work before and after school. Let's see, high expectations. We figured we might be able to move the program forward in a more positive way by focusing on professionalism, courtesy, respect, just, you know, the kinds of things that you expect people in the community to, the kinds of things that you expect people in the community to demonstrate toward each other when they're caring and caring about the well-being of each other in the program. Some of the things I looked at, there's a lot, you know, like there's crossover between the things that we listed in the staff wellness program and the partnership area. But what we really want to do is encourage people in our program to, because we're kind of not really seen during the day, to participate in school activities as much as possible, to, you know, partner with the schools, to participate in the monthly newsletter, for example, you know, let them know what we're doing before and after school, what kinds of things the kids are excited about, use our own form of student recognition in the program, and find ways to really just appreciate the position that we have and the power that we have to make a difference in kids' lives in our program. And from here, let's see.
So I don't know if you guys heard the time limit that I said that we work. If you add up the before school hours and the after school hours we spend with the kids, we spend almost as much time as their teachers do. So we have a large part of our day with these kids. Not only that, but our kids can stay with us for 5-6 years. Where they move on to a new teacher every year, we get to keep them. I had an experience today with a little guy who I'm gonna cry. But he's leaving this year. He's graduating, moving on to middle school, and I've had him for 5 years. And he just, the last couple of days, he's, I'm just gonna miss you so much. Don't talk to me about it. You know, I mean, we get to form these relationships. It's just such a privilege. It is such a privilege. And parents, I mean, I am fortunate enough, they drop their kids off and I just say, hi, how you doing? How was your weekend? What you up to? You know, or when they pick them up, same thing. How was your day? You look a little down. What happened? You know, and the kids, same thing. So we really form bonds with families and students that I just love this job. I love it. And I love the kids I work with. So, and we're getting ready to move into summer. So one of the things that, you know, I look at us and I tease all the time and I say we're a mobile mass unit for education. Because when the schools close down for midwinter break, we all come together at one school and take care of kids. Our program is on the road. And we bring in our supplies and our computers and our toys and everything, and we're setting up, you know, classrooms. COVID, we set up immediately in response to the need for, you know, first responders and essential workers. So I value these coworkers of mine because we can do that. I mean, we are adaptable and flexible. Those were words on that list. I mean, there's just so many things that we do. And for us, I think one of the things that we really want to focus on is finding the value in every student. So if that's a special needs kid, if it's a child with behavioral issues, what makes them line up? How do we reach them? How do we include them in the process? As well as all the other students. Our program is open in the morning. We have kinders to 5th graders all in one room. So finding that kind of activities that works for all of them can sometimes be challenging as well. So we really want to work on those things. We want to find the uniqueness of every student and value it. We want to work together as a group, and we want to increase our visibility within our school and our district. So those are some of our goals that we've come up with. We have more work to do. Obviously, we've got great goals, but now we want to come up with measurable ways to implement them and be accountable for them with each other. So that's where we still have work to go. But that's where we're at, and we're excited about it. Questions? Anyone?
Awesome.
And you can come and sing in my
Director Pendergraft. Oh, I was just, I'm still learning names. Is it Colleen?
Yeah.
Hi, Colleen. This is actually not directly related to goals, but is your participation up or down right now, would you say? Just coming off of
I have a wait list. Most of our schools have wait lists. We have wait lists for summer. At this summer, we're over 150 kids, which is, I think, one of our highest numbers we've had yet.
And is that common to have wait lists going into this summer?
Yeah.
It is. Okay. But yours
And we're still a really well-kept secret.
Yes, you are. Not anymore. Thank you. Director Miller?
Just thank you for your passion and for the investment of time and energy to put this together. I respect the process that you went through, and I think it was really valuable for your team and certainly for the system and the kids that you're helping, watching, and caring for. Just your ownership of this is really infectious, and your passion, enthusiasm, and love for the reads loud and clear. So just really thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to extend the same invitation to you. You may leave. Our new agenda item 5.07, which is our first reading of the adoption of our elementary math curriculum. And we have our instructional coaches, Renee Hansen and Kristen Conklin, elementary teachers Julie Rodriguez and Mark, and Lake Wilderness Elementary Principal Melanie Reedy joining us. It's a big group.
Lots of energy in the room, which is exciting because it's an exciting time to be a mathematician.
Try it again.
Try again? No. Over there. Okay. So what Kristen just handed you is a sample pack. There's each of them is a different grade level. So if you'd like a different grade level, you can ask for that or swap. First, I was just going to share with you a little bit about our process that we've been going through to reach our decision. It starts with why the change. Early on this year, we recognized on ed reports that our current curriculum is only partially meeting standard and it's outdated. The last curriculum review we did for elementary math was 10 years ago. So it was time. Our leaders, actually all of our teachers, many of our teachers have been also engaged in a course
about learning more about building math fluency. And in their responses in this course, it started to surface, we need a new resource. We need more opportunities to teach fluency in different ways and build deeper number sets. So it started bubbling, and then in February, we polled our principals and asked, is the need high or low? And as you can see, our principals and instructional coaches, the need's high. Let's start a review. Did the same with our math leaders, and again, they were saying, yep, it's time. So we started, and we created a list of what we wanted. We want a resource that's aligned to our math standards and gives us opportunities to embed the National Council of Teachers in Mathematics effective math teaching practices, and opportunities for students to develop deep number sense. We were looking for routines and experiences that engage students in flexible thinking while they're building their math fluency, and updated digital resources that would support our teachers and students. So we formed a screening team and really just started researching the top-rated resources, and we had a long list. And we knew that when we were getting ready to get deeper into it, we wanted to narrow that down. So we formed a screening team, gathered materials, and then we used a criteria to get our list of 8 down to, we didn't have a number. We said maybe 3, maybe 2, maybe 4. But after we used our criteria, we narrowed our list of resources down to 2. And that was illustrative mathematics and reveal math. These were our 8 finalists. This is just a visual for you. The column on the left shares a little bit of our criteria. We were looking if they were aligned with our beliefs. We looked at the teacher and student materials. We looked at additional resources. And in the end, we just put them side by side and looked which one is going to be a better math experience for our kids. So then we began the review process with a larger team. And our team consisted of classroom teachers. We had a 6th grade representative so that we knew the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade would be smooth. We had special ed represented. We had members of our equity team involved. We looped some parents in. We had our technology person. So it was a big team that came together and started reviewing our top 2. We grounded ourselves in our beliefs first. We wanted to make sure that we had a research, that we were looking at our standards, that we were looking at the 8 math teaching practices, and that we were looking for a resource that really built good number sense. We wanted a strong foundation for our littlest mathematicians. And then we taught some lessons. And I'm gonna let our teachers share a little bit. This is Julie Rodriguez and Jen Mako, and they actually spent some time teaching lessons from both resources.
So I'm Julie Rodriguez. I teach 5th grade, and I taught about 3 lessons from each curriculum. And like Renee was saying, we were looking for all of those pieces embedded, the math practices that we've been working on through PD and the number sense. And one just stood out for me. My students were really engaged in illustrative. They started with the math routines, which we've been working on a lot, and it was an opportunity for all the students to join in the conversation and go rich with their understanding. And there was an entry point for every student. And students sometimes that weren't even always engaged or felt confident were sharing because there was a way for them to enter the conversation. I really liked how it built the conceptual understanding for my students with the models and again the conversations. There was a lot of scaffolding involved, but it was also unique in that a task was introduced that we really stuck with, and then we went deeper and deeper with that. The students were able to use a lot of variety strategies. They were able to share their thinking, so a lot of rich math talk. And at the end, there was an exit slip to see how they've grown in their understanding of the learning target, and to share with me what I needed to do next with them. So the other curriculum, I just a little bit, it just didn't flow as smoothly. They had some of the same routines, but I felt like the students were kind of stumbling around with making sense, and by the end I wasn't as confident that they really understood what the learning target was that they had been working on. I felt like there was just too many things trying to be embedded, too many different tasks, and at the end they were kind of confused with what they were supposed to know. So I was a fan of illustrative from the beginning.
I really don't have too much to add. My name's Jen Mabel and I teach 3rd grade, and I really concur with everything that she said. And I would just add that probably the most powerful thing about the resource was that it really provided all the students an access point. I was so just kind of like stepping back and watching all these kids so engaged with their learning. And it was, kids that are my most reluctant mathematicians all the way up to my higher achievers. And they were digging in deep and they were having these really rich math conversations with each other. They were sharing their thinking. And at the end of the lesson, a lot of the kids were saying things like, can we do this again tomorrow? I love math. This was so fun, and that's not something that I hear every day currently. So it was really refreshing and really exciting.
And other members of the review team who aren't here would say the same things, that they would send me a quick email and say, I had to cut it off, like they're begging for more and I'm hungry, and that's, you don't always hear that in my class, so that's great. So we taught lessons out of both resources. We knew that we would learn best by doing and experiencing it. You know that it's a sales game sometimes, and publishers will tell you everything you want to hear when they bring out, and so I'm grateful that we were able to take the time to teach lessons. After that and during that, we used multiple criteria. We came together with our teacher teams and our specialists, and we ranked them. And then we had a community night. Our families have been included. We made the materials available on April 27th, and that went out in the Tahoma communication. And a number of parents have come in and met with me here and looked things over, and they had opportunities to share what they thought. We did a virtual night where people were offered an opportunity to share their thoughts and ask questions. That was on May 25th, I believe. And then we came together, the review team came together, and we looked at everything. And we looked at both qualitative and quantitative input as we were making our decision. There were numbers that we were comparing and working with and wrestling with, to be honest with you. One thing you might notice is our equity column here. The reveal, the one that we didn't choose, scored higher. And I'll speak to that just for a moment. And I know Emily is in the room and she might be able to share a little bit as well. But really, there was evidence in both. Our team was looking at like student names that were in the word problems. They were looking at illustrations and things. And they thought that Reveal did a better job of representing more people and families than Illustrative did. And I asked, and I did, when they shared that with us, I'm like, that doesn't feel good. Does that mean we shouldn't pick this one? And Emily shared with me, our team supports. We know that we're one part of this process and we want the best math resource, but we would like an opportunity to share this feedback with the Illustrative team if you choose to do that. And she actually did share that with them today. And they were very receptive and phone conversation right away, so that made us feel good. And the other piece of that equity line is that what we realized during the process is that what wasn't represented in what we were scoring in the equity line was access for all kids. And that spoke so loudly with our teacher teams when they were teaching lessons, is that, like Julie mentioned, some of my most reluctant mathematicians are stepping up and engaging in the conversation and asking us not to quit. And so that was a point for us as district leaders, that we need to look at our criteria and make sure that's represented somewhere in what we're scoring, because it wasn't. And so that's part of what we considered in our qualitative data. And Kristen, do you want to speak to any more of our process?
Well, I think the next slide is. So this is just pictures of our teams meeting and debriefing and having conversation.
Okay, and then the last step in the process was a consensus vote by all of the members that were present. And you can see by the green dots, the original probe, there were 16 out of 17 people were green, which is thumbs up yes. Yellow is I can live with it. And the person that voted yellow on Illustrative had an opportunity to influence the group, and we had some good conversations about how she was feeling. She really did feel that she could go either way.
But then the next slide, Renee, is a picture of all of the thumbs because we ended up with 100% consensus. Everyone thumbs up, which is a yes. And that very rarely happens in a consensus situation. So we were very excited and happy that there was a unanimous decision amongst the team to go with the question.
So we are recommending illustrative mathematics for adoption for our K-5 math curriculum. We believe it's the best choice for our kids. It's aligned with our math standards. It gives us lots of opportunities to use the effective math teaching practices. We were impressed by the routines and how they build math fluency. We believe it offers many opportunities for students to develop deep number sense, and so we are super excited about it. And then a couple more steps to the process. We've already brought it to the Instructional Materials Committee prior to bringing it to you, and they offered some great input. They actually were very complimentary of our process, which felt good. They felt like all the steps we took was a robust process and it was appreciated. Some input that they shared was it's going to be really important to have parent involvement. Parents want to help their kids, but they sometimes don't know how, so to have some community and involvement and some information. And then they confirmed that we want this to be a successful implementation, so we want to make sure we have a plan in place for our teachers and good training and how that will go down. So Melanie, our principal, was going to share a little bit about that.
Well, I have to give kudos to our very comprehensive leader because when we think about the most successful way to roll out a curriculum, we first started with the why. What do we do with this year zero before it goes out to everybody? And it really is to have this smaller group of early implementers get their hands in and have all of our kiddos in this curriculum, and that we can work through it at a smaller scale. So you'll see we've got 36 very eager math leaders. They're excited to be our early implementers, one per grade level at each of our schools. There will be some collaboration across those grade levels. We'll have opportunities for training this August before we launch. We'll also have follow-up training throughout the year. As we know, our teaching teams value collaboration, and that's really where we get the most successful implementation. So that's our plan. And then our full implementation will be the year after next.
So that's what we are recommending. Now we're ready for your questions.
What would you, at the end of this launch cycle, what would the questions be that you would expect us as a board if you're reporting on the success of the full scale launch? What would be the questions you want us to ask to see if this thing's doing what you think it's doing?
I would say, what does it look like in the classrooms? What are students doing and saying, and how does that feel? Are we seeing engaged learners? I think that's something that we would be able to see and have a tangible outcome from this math curriculum. I think the hardest parts are done for us with ed reports. It's a curriculum that satisfies all of the standards, but now it's up to us for the instructional practice of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the curriculum has opportunities to do checks. There's checkpoints throughout the sections. There's also some of the assessments we can look at our data and see how our kids are performing. But ultimately, we would also want to consider the experience that our teachers and our kids are having and really get into our classrooms and see that math talk and watch from point A to point B on these little checkpoints of how many kids are engaged versus what's happening now.
We ought to see that. I mean, I've seen that in the classroom. So does this curriculum kind of enhance that and build on that?
Yes. And we saw evidence of that in a few lessons that we taught. It came alive in ways that we haven't yet experienced with our current curriculum.
Director Carrion?
First, I applaud you for picking what's best for the students, despite the lower equity score. I'm really diving into the details of that equity score. That was really good job of bringing that up for us. Second, I gotta be honest, I went to outside counsel on this math. It's my big math major. I went to outside counsel, 30 years teacher of the Arizona district. It was my mother. So, appreciate the thumbs up. She really liked the curriculum as well, really positive. But her point to me was, and my point as well to you, is the implementation process is key. She's seen many plans come out over 30 years, and it's all about the implementation that comes down to it, whether or not plans succeed or not. So how are you going to achieve that buy-in from those teachers that were part of your review process over these next 2 years?
We had like, what, we had 116 teachers that wanted to really implement.
We actually had so we started, the math leaders agreed that they were going to get early implementers. And then I said, well, and then you do a little bit of like, hey, my partner, we planned together, she's all in, can she also? And I'm like, well, I'll keep, heard it again. Pretty soon I'm like, we need a principal meeting because we were up to over 100 classrooms that were ready to go. I mean, there's that much energy about it and the buzz and just hearing our leaders. I mean, we're a collaborative group in our PLC time to hear your leaders talking about the lessons that they taught. It's pretty contagious. And so I wanted to say yes to everything I really did. It was a really hard decision to say, first I even said to the principals, I'm like, we can do it. We'll just do it. They're like, we want it to be done well. And so that's why we made the hard decision to tell them, we're going to stick with math leaders and then we are going to work out any of the kinks so that by full implementation we'll be ready.
And I can only speak to my school at my grade level, but every fifth grade teacher that teaches math in my school tried out the curriculum when we talked about it, the variety, and they all were on the same page with how they felt about it.
And that just one other quick note that in talking with other districts I've talked with Lake Washington, I've talked to them, they've recently adopted illustrative and just networking with those other leaders, they said you can do a lot in year 0 with the teachers that aren't there by just helping them understand that they need to have a deeper understanding of the teaching practices. So we are planning to do some of that, even with the teachers who aren't implementing with some professional development opportunities for all.
First, I'm comforted to know that Mrs. Carey has. Thanks for letting us go through this. I did just kind of peruse a little bit, and I was kind of comforted to see and you spoke to this, the universal design for learning pieces that are built into here, some ELL things that are built into here. So it really seems like a comprehensive curriculum for those aspects. The one question I have is it built into this curriculum, or would it be something else for the Discovery Program in HiCap?
Good question. Right now, the way that our HiCap is doing that, but what our progression is that we compact 3rd and 4th grade into our 3rd grade Discovery Program. So then our 4th grade Discovery is working in 5th grade standards and our 5th grade Discovery is in 6th grade. So we will explore that to continue with the kind of advanced track with our Discovery, but 3rd and 4th grade math standards meld well together. That's why we chose to do the compact year at 3rd grade. And then it's working so far. And we'll just make sure as we make plans that is the plan we want to keep with them.
So for HiCap, just to paraphrase, the 4th grader would just be doing the 5th grade portion of this curriculum.
That's what we are currently doing, yes. And they're already on a 1-year track and they could advance 2 years in middle school.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I have a question, but I need to get a thumbs up from my colleagues to extend, because we're at our 20-minute mark. Oh, you have a question? You're good. Okay. So I had a question about professional development. A lot of my questions have already been asked, but this is a follow-up. I am curious if you all have talked at all about what that professional development will look like in terms of whether we're running it in-house or if we're bringing in outside expertise. What is the talk so far?
I can speak to that. So our plan would be to contract with the publisher. Learn Resilient, and I was like looking at Learn Resilient. Learn Resilient is now Imagine Learning, and they are actually partners with Illustrative Math. Illustrative Math started out grassroots, nonprofit. They started as a company, or not a company, nonprofit, to create tasks that illustrate the math standards. And now they've grown. They were just set out to be a support for teachers. Now they've developed a curriculum. And so they have a partner in Imagine Learning who does the platform that you have access to. and also the print materials. And so we would provide training for both because we want to make sure our teachers can use the platform. And that would be a virtual training for the platform of learning. And then we would have the illustrative math folks come out in August and prior to school starting for our leaders and provide training for them. We don't have the dates or anything, so you can't board approval. August before school starts, we want to come out of the chute strong. So we have plans for training in August, assuming this all goes well.
There's also follow-up throughout the year with the folks from illustrative math because the methodology is different than what we're doing now, and so we don't want to just make the assumption of like one and done is good enough. And so being able to experience the process throughout the year will help us to inform then what really needs to happen in year one full implementation.
Okay, and this follow-up question, I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure, and I probably already know the answer, but I just want to be sure with 100% certainty. Do we feel like we have the capacity to provide that professional development in math when we also know that we are working on literacy professional development?
Yes, we would not do this if we didn't feel like we had capacity, so yes.
Okay, thank you.
My question is a bit more detail-oriented, I would say, but when you talk about access points, I think is what you refer to them as, is that just different ways, like take, problem number 5, there's multiple ways for kids to show learning, or that, is that, can you speak a little bit to access points, so that's a question about that?
I feel like I'm talking a lot. Jump in if you want to. A little of both. I think that the launch and the warm-up is an opportunity for access points. An example of a number routine would be like, which one doesn't belong? Or what do you notice, what do you wonder? These are ways that the lesson starts. Well, at that level, everybody's curious. Even if you're not a strong mathematician, you can be curious and you can make some observations. So even their entry point into lessons with these routines levels the playing field, and your high flyers are going to notice things that are much more in-depth than maybe your ones who are just your emerging learners, but everyone has an access point. And then the way that they develop the lesson is a lot of hands-on, a lot of manipulatives, a lot of, let's first mess with the math, make some meaning of it, and then it develops the concepts deeper with some teacher-guided instruction, and now that we've messed around and sorted our rectangles, now let's figure out how do we put them there, it'll go on from there. So the start of the lesson really just provides an access point for all to get curious, to get engaged, and then when the teaching comes, they have some background knowledge to build on.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you all. Do you have any questions or comments?
Comment. I actually really like this illustrated math because I've heard like from peers and stuff and like the higher math, but like having that background and like just like going into something not just going straight into a topic, and as we get higher, we just like dive into deep. But starting at a younger age, having that background and starting that curiosity, just going about it at a different angle and not just straight into the math portion is a really great way to take on math. In the sense of like remove that barrier of, oh, I need to be this like smart to do this kind of math, or I can't do this because I don't know how to do something, and like I don't know how to do this. I just really like that. Also, I really liked how your equity aspect and how you provide information in the booklet for parents to help their students. Also, not just the students when they take over their homework. How do I do this? Or like the parents are like, what does this mean? This wording is really weird. What does it mean? Aren't we just like adding 1 + 1 or like dividing or multiplying? I really appreciate that for like the next few generations who are coming into like 85. Thank you.
Thank you all. We really appreciate the time tonight and all of the work that's gone into this fantastic recommendation. Item is 5.08, or new 5.08, Annual Operations and Safety Report. And we are joined now by Director of Operations Tom Misfeld and Safety and Security Coordinator Sean Kelly, who are going to present and answer questions from the board.
Hi, good evening. All right. Well, we'd like to start off again. Sean and I are going to divide this up into two sections like we normally do. The first thing I want to talk a little bit about, which was already on, was our state inspection this year. And I appreciate Mike and Lori talking about mechanics and the job they do. But a little bit, you guys may not know that goes into that. Everything that could be a safety issue for these kids on a bus is looked at. Everything from a light burning out to a rubber seal being out on an emergency exit. Anything that they can find could be an out of service. 100% does not usually happen in a full bus inspection. We had 88 buses inspected, and we have 100% out of that. It's a lot of hard work that went in during the whole year. It was not only just the mechanics, it was the driver reporting different things that came up as they would find things, let them know, doing the write-up. So it was a complete group effort. Our mechanics did an outstanding job. So did the drivers. So did the team. Just everything that goes into safety, so these kids are safe on a bus is looked at. They usually come when they schedule an inspection, and they schedule it for, they're usually there for almost 4 full days. So, a lot goes into that. So that was our full inspection, and also I believe that's the first time in Tahoma history that we've ever received a 100% on the full bus inspection. Also, the December surprise inspection. They show up at any given time, any month. They choose to, and they'll come in and say, we want to pull these 25 buses, or 25% of your fleet, which was 20 buses for us, just over. And on that one in December, we scored a 92. The mechanics and everyone was not happy because we scored a 92. We've been scoring higher. But to give you a couple examples of why we scored 92. So we don't choose the buses. They just come in and say, I'll take this one, I'll take that one, bring me this one. So we had one of the spare buses that was on the back line, waiting to be brought up, but they said they wanted that. And because it's a spare bus, our fire extinguishers are kept in the shop. Well, people are running around to grab buses, and they said we want that, but they didn't throw a fire extinguisher in to bring it from its parking stall into the shop and put it back. That's an out of service. The other out of service we had at that time was a rubber seal around the back emergency exit. It was not adequate. That was an out of service. And that was the only 2 things we had, which caused that. So they really stepped up in our shop. So I'm very proud of what's going on there. Another achievement we had is after COVID had been going so strong and we lost drivers and had open routes, our staff trained and hired 13 new contracted drivers to fill the vacancies that it came about. So we're very proud of that. Our sub-driver list, which was down to almost nothing, has 7 drivers on it now. Some drive afternoon, some drive evening, some drive AM and PM. Some have different jobs, so they only want to do parts of it. That's growing. And our summer classes for new drivers is already have a sign-up list, so we have drivers signed up for that. Some challenges we faced was still with COVID going on was covering routes. All of a sudden we get there in the morning and we've already got a few open routes as we're filling these drivers through the year. They were all at the very start of the year. I think at one point, just not too long ago, just a few months ago, I think we had 16 routes we covered in one day, 15 or 16 routes we were covered in one day. And that's just the whole team working together, covering different routes for each other, where they could, office staff driving, Sean driving, team member. Another challenge we have is just recruiting applicants. We've used different methods, and we're using AJ and those guys to also help us, HR to help us. But there's still a lot of people that aren't jumping back into the workforce, and that's still a challenge for us. Another challenge we saw is the increasing cost for new buses. We just got a new memo from Bluebird that next year our prices are going to go up 25% plus for multiple reasons. So the price has just been skyrocketing. We're still continuing to deal with the rising cost of fuel. For budgeting purposes, we've asked that Petra, who we get our fuel delivers to us, gives us a daily cost of what the fuel's doing, so we can try to help with budgeting. And that we started doing that about maybe 2.5 months ago. And at that point, the fuel for our cost was still somewhere around $4.60 something, I believe. And we've been getting them every day. And right now, our cost is running somewhere around $6.14. Our stop arm camera that we've been working on for years. During COVID, what we found out that happened is we were able to, right when COVID hit, we were just about to have it done over spring break, and they were going to come out and put them all in, and then we couldn't do anything because no one could come out. Since then, during COVID, the programs that had it so that that was at no cost to the district, those programs have gone away. So while we've been looking for those, so we get our stop arm camera going for the catching violators, we're still pursuing that, and I'm thinking now that this is really off-ramping, hopefully some programs will begin to pick that up, and we'll be able to pursue that. And the last thing I had, which kind of goes up with the other part, is a challenge we faced. But normally we have 4 mechanics in the shop, and we were able to pull off what they did with just 3 when we've been out for over a year. Upcoming plans for next school year. So one thing that we're really expecting with what's gone on with where our staffing levels are and what we have for our subs and our new drivers that are signing up is we do expect that we're going to start the school year with all the routes being filled. We know that we've got a few people that are retiring that are going to go on. Most of them have already shared that. But we expect we're going to probably start with a full route or fully staffed routes. We're still going to have our staff working on increasing our sub list. To me, 7 is a great number, but it's not enough when these are people that do AM and PM every day. They have other jobs they do where they just choose not to want to commit to that. I would like to personally see at least 10 people on our sub list. We're going to continue, as I said, continue to pursue the Stop Our Camera program. We're going to follow our bus purchase practice and updating the fleet. And you notice this year, one thing I didn't put in here was the updated fleet information, and that's just because it has not changed since I presented to you last. And then we're going to further develop our Tahoma Cares program, which we talked about last week, because that's pretty exciting in our group. So. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Tom. Board members, it's always an honor coming before you. So this is the maintenance, grounds, and custodial safety side of the house. One thing that we achieved was really exciting, is we were able to get our HVAC systems up, working on inventory and all, and we changed all the filters from R13s because one of the requirements back in the buildings was number 4, and the health department's requirement is the ventilation systems had to be updated. So we're working on that because of the guidance you gave and the funding. We're actually going to be working on 3 buildings this summer. So we're going to have Glacier Park, Rock Creek, and Elementary School. Implemented and cleaning, disinfecting, maybe not changing up how things do. We're not like the old days. We actually have, like, tonight, Tyler's going to be in here disinfecting this room later on tonight. Because, in our regular communities. Reopening the buildings to normal activities. We're glad our carnivals are back. Glad the school activities going to place the high school sporting events. We're really excited to have those back in the building. We want to get back to normal because normal is healing. But we now have the new criteria to clean up after those. So we're working on those with the health department. Safety plans, updates for all schools. You're going to get a copy of those in the next week or so of each campus. So like whatever school you represent, you're going to get a copy of that. So you can know that. And I'd like you to do when you get those sometime over the summer, meet your safety team for that campus and ask questions. Poke holes at it. We're going to talk more about safety in a second. The safety officers and school service officers attended the new OSPI safety requirements, and we're going to talk about that a little later. We'll talk about procedure 40-11 in the agenda later. And then per board policy and OSPI, we are up to date on all of our safety drills for the year. You know, a staffing position we cannot get filled. This is normally a great position for somebody who's graduating high school. Looking for some money for college. Work Saturday, Sunday, 20 hours at a time, full benefits, go to college during the week. We'll talk about that later. But we did have absences this year because of COVID, and what happens when that happens, when custodians are absent, our grounds and maintenance staff have to back and push them a little bit behind, so we will work on that. But one thing about our maintenance and ground staff is they're always willing to chip in and make sure the building is ready for the students. We have to re-educate our staff on filling out incident reports when they get injured in the workplace. We're going to be working on that quite a bit this fall. We're going to be working on our inclement weather plans for this from last year, and get that worked out with the city. In fact, Assistant Superintendent Cloud and Mr. Kyle Hood, I still have a meeting about that, I think on Thursday, about that. And then we've had some vandalisms of some of our district vehicles this year. 14 Cadillac Converters have been stolen out of district vehicles this year. And what we did is we went through, we talked to Mr. Davis will remember this name, Daniel Bellis, who's a detective for the Everett Police Department. He was a good idea of getting Cadillac Converters, spray painting them bright orange and putting the VIN numbers on there, so if the police find them, they can track it back down to home school district here in possession of stolen property. So since we've done that, we're going to track what Cadillac Converters has stolen. So that's where we got. I want to talk about what's coming up. What we're doing this year is the custodial staff and maintenance staff really want to focus on training. They're not been trained in the last couple of years because of the COVID situation. So every Wednesday in July and August during the summer months is going to be a 2 to 3 hour training day for the custodial maintenance staff. Here's an example of lift training when they go open lifts. HAZCOM training, which is chemicals. CPR first aid AED training, things like that. A lot more lists. If you want to see the list, I can email it to you anytime. Replacement of the HVAC units, like I told you earlier. Maintenance staff is going to be keeping our grounds, making sure, because the grounds look nice, people want to come to our buildings and makes them feel like they belong. Safety, I'm going to kind of go over this a little bit. Actually, what was the word notes since I sent this in? Is back in 2015, we had a consultant come out and look at all our safety plans. It was a very extensive safety plan we went through. And then this warm safe drive went through, the school board approved quite a bit. Safety everything came out of the capital projects. And here's some things that were approved back then and continuing on to this day. Is this thing still working, James? Okay. We updated the camera system with lots of cameras in our schools. We made sure that classrooms and offices are updated with turn locks. We spent over $700,000 on that. And we have a few more to look at, it sounds like, so we'll get together with Johnson. In fact, I'm getting together with the building manager tomorrow about that. So we cleaned up shrubs around the campuses so the police and first responders can see in the buildings. We added fencing around the schools. We took the maps off the website so somebody can't just go to the website and see around our buildings very well. This year, Assistant Superintendent Cloud is going to be reaching out to our consultant again and hopefully get him back out and get some more information for us. Really excited, the safety team is really excited because Superintendent Hansen has approved the run, hide, fight training for staff in August and September and to review all safety plans. One thing that our big violent police officers and Deputy Sam Shirley has, Sam, can you show them all what you have? All our police officers.
A lot of things. Are you talking about the key to everything?
Yes. And one of the things I think what happened in Texas is we heard is one of the things that happened in Texas is very preliminary. Nobody's really seen the official report out of Texas. There'll be a lot to learn from that. I watch a lot of those things, unfortunately. Is one of the preliminary things is they couldn't get in some of the rooms because they had to wait for custodians to get a key. Well, the Maple Valley Police Department, all of our police officers that work around here, back in 2007, Assistant Superintendent Cloud gave authorization to all of our police officers to have Grand Master keys at that time. And they use them so they can get right through anything if there's an emergency going on. Okay, so it's a big deal. We're one of the few schools that other schools that started copying this over the last couple of years. We do security and safety walk audits. We visited 2 schools today, and we don't tell them when we're coming, right, Mr. Mitchell?
Right.
Yeah, because we don't want them to know we're coming. We want to see things that, what they need to work on. And that's one of the good things, the principals are very receptive to what we notice. And when we do those walks, it's usually, Mr. Hood was there today, Karen Watt, safety officer of the high school, I was there, and then and my assistant, Tina Angel, was taking notes for us, and then we'll type them all up and we'll send it to the superintendent's office for review. We did have 2 lockdowns this year. I don't know about those. One was a Summit Trail for a student management issue. And then the other one was at Lake Willis Elementary School for a robbery that happened up at Willis Village, where the police department told us we need to put it in lockdown because the suspect was going towards the school. And during that time, EEP was there, and they went into lockdown, and they followed every procedure for what they were told to do, so they did a really good job. Per school policy and state law, we have 4 district-wide safety meetings a year. Okay, every building has a rep there, the superintendent's office is there, all departments are rep there, school board has a rep there too. The police chief is there, the fire chief is there, our risk management is there. It's really good dialogue we have at those meetings, so we take safety very seriously when it comes to those. And the superintendent can call for a special meeting anytime. We also have the safety team, which is the building managers, 3 safety officers, SRO Sam Shirley, and myself, and Mr. Hoodman volunteered. Thank you for the district office. And we meet every 3 weeks to kind of go over any safety and security issues that we run around the district. We have an outstanding partnership with the Maple Valley Police Department, the King County Sheriff's Office, and the Puget Sound Fire Authority. And one thing I want to make sure we have a great partnership with our staff, parents, and students. If you'd be surprised how often students and staff members and parents tell us about things that are going on, and we're investigating things all the time. It's not uncommon for me to be calling the superintendent or assistant superintendent at 1 o'clock in the morning to tell them about something that's going on we're working on. And they're making sure they're checking and making sure everything's done right. The motto we have, you hear it all the time, if you see something, say something. If we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. We are also working extremely hard on our earthquake drill. It's coming up on October 5th, and the earthquake drill is really good because that pushes our limits a little bit on the incident command system. We have incident commands inside of schools. And we also are going to work really hard on reunification. We never know when an earthquake's going to happen. We know it's going to happen, but we need to be ready for it. The last thing is we're going to continue to work on Tahoma Care. Our staff is extremely excited about it. I think I told you about when we had a meeting and a couple of custodians couldn't make it, and they were a little upset because they couldn't attend the last meeting we had. So it's a big deal to our staff about Tahoma Care. They actually feel like they're part of the team. So thank you very much for making sure the 5 of you and the superintendent make sure that they were part of that team. On that, I don't have anything else. Do you have any questions for Tom? He's more willing to answer any questions for you.
Any questions or comments? Okay, I have a very quick question. Tom, I was so excited about the stop arm cameras, and you seemed really enthused about them several years ago when you were presenting as well. Is there hope that we could pay for them? I just wanted to circle back on that because it sounded like that program shut down, but there might be an opportunity somewhere else.
Sure, we could. One of the things that we're going to have to do, though, that also involves King County and getting interlocal agreements and so forth, and how do they get reimbursed for their money and their time, along with equipping 80-some vehicles with a lot of equipment. So at some point, if we can't find another one, we can always get with Lori and talk about, is there an option for that? But I'm really thinking as big a program as that was, that it will come back around.
Okay, thank you. And Sanjana, did you have any questions or comments before we move on?
Just thank you for caring about students and their safety.
Thank you both very much. We are going to move on to agenda item 5.09, and if you're tracking the agenda, this is the original agenda item 5.09, reviewing the revised procedure 3432P emergencies. And we have Supervisor of Operations Sean Kelly and safety officers joining us to present and answer questions from the board.
Thank you, Madam President. Director is joining tonight is Building Manager Ray Intact. And just a reminder, all of you know that she's retiring here at the end of this month, so bummed to be leaving. And then Safety Officer from Maple Middle School, Alyssa Buckley. This is emergency drills. And we formed a committee a while ago. We actually put it in policy back in November, if you remember, and now this is the procedure going forward. And we have a committee of secondary principal Shaw Cassidy, elementary school principal Melanie Hart from Lake Wilderness, and then we had all the safety team there, which is again the 3 safety officers from secondary schools, the building managers. Mr. Good was there, representing the district office, and I was there too. I went through the procedure and tweaked it around a little bit to kind of make it more up to speed on what's going on, and also give you some more updates from WASDA too. So Ms. Buckley is going to go over any little highlights there, and then if you have any questions, you can ask us.
Good evening. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all 10 pages. For all 10 pages, just a couple of quick highlights. Something that we noted is we put a definition of what is an emergency. An emergency is a serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action that interferes with the learning environment. This could be something from a natural disaster. We had emergency with snow, having to get kids home from Cedar River. We could have an earthquake. We have the swimming pool right next to us up at Mapleview Middle School. There could be a chemical leak of chlorine. So all sorts of emergencies. Can't name them all, but we do have plans as best possible. We have 4 basic functional responses. Those are evacuation, lockdown, earthquake, and shelter in place. Going through, I'm not going to go through all of the pages, but towards the back there are additional information on specific situations, and then there are some planning considerations as well. So without going through everything, did you guys have any questions for us? Yes. Yeah, Vice President.
I do have a few. Just a clarification in the lockdown portion of the procedure, it speaks specifically to there'll be 4 lockdown drills during the year, 1 in September specifically. And I wondered why the specificity around September is just because coming back from the summer and we got to get back on the tracks and those kind of things.
Yes. So the first week of school, we do a summer drill, and then the first month of school, we will be doing a lockdown, and then we have the earthquake drill scheduled for the October 5th.
And 2 other quick ones. Do we still do the all-city drill? I think of it as the all-city drill where fire department comes out, the police department comes out, and we did it at some trail a couple times. Well, might have been pre-pandemic, but
It's the earthquake drill on October 5th.
that's the.
And you'll see when I contact Superintendent Hanson, more about it, and we'll get to the
Okay. And then lastly, a few years ago, we invested in what I refer to as emergency preparedness kits for all the buildings.
Yes.
And do those get refreshed on a periodic basis, or they have to?
They get checked regularly. We have them in our emergency container, and when we have our full-scale earthquake drill, and we go through and activate our incident command team, we have folks who will go to the emergency container, unlock, just like this would be a real event, and they take their bags and they start the search and rescue process.
Thank you. That's a good question. So, this context, I grew up on one of the largest military bases in the country, Fort Worth, Texas. And I remember when I was little, we used to have these drills for nuclear war. It wasn't until I was older I realized hiding under a desk isn't really going to protect you from nuclear annihilation. But I remember the anxiety it created in doing these drills, right? And so what do we do, and maybe I don't have disabilities, but what do we do as we kind of message these drills to our students? Like, because those things, just doing drills can actually create apprehension about the thing. So what's our approach to that?
So at elementary school, we do consider, the age of each of the students in the different grade levels, and we work with the teachers. We try to keep it, when we announce a drill, we always talk about how it is a drill, and the teachers spend some time with the kids talking about appropriately for their age level, about what they're experiencing and what we're practicing and that type of thing. So it's kind of left up to, we kind of guide the teachers to make those connections with the kids and if they're appropriate level.
Do you feel like if we were to do the students, do you feel like it's taking some edge off of some of these issues, especially with.
We've increased our drill, the amount of drills that we do over, time, since I've been here, 33 years. And I think that it's becoming, unfortunately, it's becoming more of a routine for them as part of their school life.
I'd like to add one thing is I'd like to ask that if you get a chance to be in the building when they're doing a drill, it kind of lets you know what's going to happen. So reach out to your safety team for a building representative and they'll email you when they're going to. So I usually plan a couple of days, actually a week or so in advance. So if you want to learn a lot what's going on and then when we do the quick drill in October, make sure you know what's going on there. Any other questions about the safety drills from safety emergency? I want to say Ms. Buckley is leading the safety team and HR is taking her now. So that's why I say thank you very much because some of these procedures and policies are fed because all the back work she does to make them happen. So that's why we give her a round of applause. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item 510, which is reviewing the adoption of procedure 4311P, School Safety and Security Program. And again, Mayor Kelly is going to be joining us, but I'd actually like Superintendent Hansen to open up this agenda item for us.
Yeah, you bet. I think Sean's done a really nice job of illustrating the role of staff and the role of the board around this topic, which is like many other topics where the board's role around policy and staying at the strategic level and staff's role around procedures and operational level, and all the examples that you gave and citing who's doing what, and how frequently those things are coming together. And so as folks, it's obviously a hot topic tonight. And just kind of that difference between the role of the board around school safety and security and the role of our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. So back in November, you adopted policy 4311, and now this is the procedure to follow up with this. This is updated from WASDA, and it actually now includes the safety officers. When we adopted it 2 years ago, it just had the SROs, and then in November we updated it with 4311, and now has the safety officers and uses the procedure. I want to let you know that if you read the first section there, all the training guidelines in there, all the safety officers and SROs are in compliance right now. They've all taken all these classes and they've got all those certificates. SRO Sam Shirley did it last summer. Our safety officers just got completed this spring break, and our new SRO that's coming on at the high school, he's set to get his training at the national conference. The police chief is sending him to the national conference to get him up to speed there. You're going to see how the complaint procedure against school resource officers and safety officers. I got together with, I talked on the phone, acting HR Director Tracy Krause, and what we did, we kind of mimic this closer to our school board policy and procedure 4220. So it's very similar to the timelines and how long people have complaints, stuff like that. So it's very close to that. And the annual data collection and those type of things is I'll be getting together with the school resource officer and the police chief and probably Ms. Plow or Mr. Hood, and we'll come up with some how we're going to get those data and guidelines going so we can keep track of how we're going to track it. The sheriff's office, one thing is they're really good at tracking information. They have really good databases, and so do we. We just got to make sure we're doing this. We're not having too many different things going on there. Any questions about this? We're a house planning thing, but I just want to make sure it's, and I appreciate the support, and the team appreciates your support.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Any questions, please call anytime.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 511, which is our first reading revised policy 1105, our electoral system. And just as a reminder, at the May 24th board meeting, the board listened to and reviewed public comments regarding the proposed revised school board director district boundaries for board elections. Tonight, we are reviewing the first reading of the board policy that includes the specifics of these proposed revised boundaries. The second reading and a vote to adopt the policy is scheduled for the June 28th, 2022 regular school board meeting. Superintendent Hansen?
You bet. This is actually the third time the board has seen the proposed changes. In short, every time there's a census that's done. We need to go back and look at our director district sizes and distribution, and there are 4 criteria according to policy 1105 that we look at to develop a plan to make sure it's consistent with that. Like many districts around, we hire an outside agency to come in and support making that happen. That was done. The board directed us to ask them to do a second look at it. We did that, and they brought back a second version of it. And that's the version the board has seen twice, and now it's being brought to a first reading. So.
Do we have any questions or comments?
Just simply, Mike, this is the first time I'm seeing the words defining the boundaries that were shown in the maps that we looked at. Just want to make sure that that is consistent with the version we saw at the work study or the day of retreat and so forth.
Yeah. So once it gets to a spot, the first, and I'm speaking to everybody as well as you guys, the maps are the first thing that we see. Once the the data agency believes that that's the one we're going to go forward with, or most likely to, then we engage them and ask them to develop a description of those boundaries, and so that's why you see it now at the first reading.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item 512, which is our action to approve the second reading and adoption of policy 3203, inclusion, diversity, and equity. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 512, action to approve the second reading, adopt policy 3203, inclusion, diversity, and equity.
I move to adopt policy 3203, inclusion, diversity, and equity.
I'll second the same.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Williams seconded. Thank you. Last year, with the input of more than 1,000 students, families, staff, and community members, our board adopted 5 different goals that we call Tahoma Cares. One of those goals is equity, and Tahoma has been building this equity policy that you see before you over the last year, and our board in particular has spent more than 3 hours discussing it. Like all of our board policies, policy 3203 is designed to operate at the 30,000-foot strategic level. And if this policy is adopted tonight, it's important to know that the procedure that outlines the ground level implementation would follow at a later date. So I'm going to invite Director of Equity, Emily Hard, and incoming Director of Equity, Tony Davis, to the front of the room to present and answer questions from the board. Welcome.
I feel the need to apologize to the students that were here. We're better than that. And I don't know that we're presenting that neatly set. It's 4 words. Just welcome, safe, supportive, inclusive. That's what we're talking about. And we get sidetracked into a lot of different things. I share with you stories about kids that don't feel like they belong here, and adults that don't feel like they belong here. We've had that conversation. They're hard to hear, and they're reinforced them when you see them from what I understand. So I will step aside and let Emily present, and if there's questions, I'll step back in and answer. There are those moments, and this is one of them for us. We need to do what's best for our kids and our staff in these schools. That's what they deserve from us. We lead. So that's why families move here. So let's stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. I'll just say that we need this policy. We need it now. Our kids need it. Our staff needs it. It speaks to who we are. It speaks to belonging for every child. A parent wrote to me and to the board, I believe, today, and she said, when you don't teach children about others and demonstrate that there is value in differences
You fail to teach children empathy, resilience, effective communication skills, and a global perspective. They will need those values to thrive as adults. And that was giant knowledge. And given that, the board has already identified equity as one of the 5 strategic goals. This policy is in alignment with that. It speaks to what we care about, and we need to move forward with it. As President Hollowell said, we've spent a year now discussing the policy, listening to input from the community, from staff, from students. We've made significant revisions in the policy based on that input, and it's time to move forward. And as Colleen, one of the staff members from the Extended Enrichment Program, said earlier tonight, we value all of our unique students. That's what this policy is about. Thank you.
Do you have questions or comments?
I do. And forgive me, but I knew it would be a late hour, and so I had some prepared remarks. I'm excited about the progress of this policy and what it represents for our students and staff in our system. This codifies a belief system that each and every student and staff member must feel safe, supported, included, and welcome in our buildings. These are essential and basic human needs, and I fully support the environment created by and the beliefs embodied in this proposed policy. As you know, I've been supporting the Equity Steering Committee and their work on this policy and the accompanying procedure. Policies before us tonight, we have previously seen drafts of the procedure, like Ms. Hollowell said. We'll see that presented to us in another time. Like all of our policies and procedures, the procedure is where the specific tactics are described and play out. I've heard from enough students that recount experiences and behavior that disrupts their educational experience, prevents them from reaching their full potential, and just simply unkind and have no place in our community. To know that we have work to do in this area and gaps to narrow or eliminate in service of a successful educational experience and future for every student in our system, in every classroom, every day. This policy and the procedure to come will move us forward in that work, and I'm excited for what that'll bring. I also want to say thank you to the Equity Steering Committee members and all of the community and staff that were involved in developing and deliberating on this that's before us tonight. And particularly the both of you, thank you for all your help and your leadership.
Yeah, I just want to applaud the Equity Steering Committee as well. Accepting his thoughts, that wonderful job, taking the day and time. It's been a long process, I understand that, but we want to make sure that we got right as close as we could. For me, it comes down to one sentence. It's for the purposes of policy, the focus on educational equity, which means raising the achievement of all students. And Tony, you said that the best. And that's what it's all about, the students. And that's what we got to remember here in this room. And so thank you again, and I applaud your work.
I think we all had pretty full inboxes. A lot of emails were sent to all of us. A lot of thoughts were sent to each of us from community members, from teachers, from kids. And the thing that I go back to with this is that it actually is the common ground. It's what binds us all. It talks about our differences and celebrating each other and having love for each other and making sure that there's nothing in the way that stands in front of a kid learning and reaching their highest potential. This policy takes nothing away from any person, any child, any adult. It only gives. And we can get caught up in the words, we can get caught up in the measures, we can get caught up in all of that, but what it boils down to is it's a policy based in love, loving our neighbors, loving each other, and trying to make sure that our kids have every single thing that they need to succeed. And it's about time. It's 2022. We need this.
I think about a lot of things that I'm proud of in Tahoma, and one of the things I'm most proud of is that we always talk about and we show with our actions that we put kids at the center of every decision we make. That is we say that all the time, and I think that this is one of those moments where our vote tonight is about putting kids at the center of this decision, and our vote is voting for them and their opportunities and their success and their ability to thrive in our district. So thank you for your immeasurable work on this. It's been a long time, a lot of work, a lot of thought and care, and so I'm really grateful to both of you, and I'm excited to see where this vote will go.
I'll be honest, I've struggled with this policy, to be transparent. I've spent probably over 40 hours talking to people, including to my fellow board members, members of the community, teachers, staff, students, people outside. I've talked to child psychologists. I've done everything I can to understand this issue. In those journeys, I haven't had a single conversation, interestingly enough, where I really didn't agree with the majority of the conversation. And it didn't matter who I was having a conversation with. I understand that this policy means a lot to a lot of people. I'm grateful for the, as I understand it, we kind of came out of retirement to do this. Maybe question as to whether that was the same decision. But, and I've talked to Tony about this, and it's been impressed upon me how much this matters to a great number of people. I'm skeptical at the same time as we think about things like terms like institutional racism. These are highly bandied about terms these days. I don't know. I think my concern with the policy is that it relies on an equity lens, right? That it relies on an equity lens to have a sharp edge to it, to actually do something. And I don't know what that equity lens is right now. I think that's something that's procedure and that we'll be working through. And so that concerns me because in some sense it feels like a bit of a blank check in a way. But I'm curious. I'm curious and I'm willing to kind of go that route and see what it looks like. And I would also say that just sitting here in this board meeting, as I listen to the people come up and present on transportation and operations and our math curriculum and all these things, I hope all of you, and I'm seeing how equity actually plays out, because we're already doing it to a large degree. So for the people who are concerned of what that word means, that's what you've seen it. I've seen it in the way that we're approaching problems and challenges and trying to move success forward for our students and our staff. And so I support the policy because it means a lot to people that I care about. It means a lot to the people that I respect and that I trust who have been involved in it. The fact that I'm not completely I don't like everything I see in it necessarily, probably just means that it's the result of compromise. It probably means it's the result of a lot of people who put their heads together. If I could still do minutes. Probably means it's the result of a number of people who put their heads together and came up with the best thing that we could, despite all the differences of opinions. And that's the way compromise is supposed to work. You usually walk out of that process not getting something you want. And a lot of the emails that have come into my inbox have been, doesn't go far enough, it goes too far, what's it going to do? That's a sign of compromise to me. Last thing I'll say, that I'm grateful for the effort regardless. It's a huge commitment, it's a huge lift. When I see the students kind of bear their testimonies as to the value it plays in their life, I'm moved by that. I'm skeptical. I'm interested to see what the procedure looks like because I think that will be important. I'm interested to have visibility into that and to work with the people here who are going to be doing that work forward again. So thank you. I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. And Mitchell?
Okay. And would you like me to speak from just here or try to use that?
If you'd like to go to the podium, then everybody can hear you.
It's your choice, yeah. Hello. My focus right now is going to be less on this and the policy, more of the process of how we got here, specifically as it focuses on students really in two ways. The first is that this is truly a student-driven policy, I believe. You had Tamir come in here early, you had Faith come in here early to speak about this. These were not students that suddenly emerged at the last minute, saw it on the agenda for those students that bizarrely check school board meeting agendas. I know that I'm in the minority. They've been involved in this for years, and Tanvir made passing mention, but I don't think it deserves just passing mention. He has been involved in this since his freshman year. This is now his junior year. The Student Voice Committee at the high school, as I understand, has also been instrumental in trying to develop this policy. This is not just something that you see one or two students being very passionately involved in. This is something that is a community at the high school and across the district that is invested in this at this point. Furthermore, it is a student-focused policy. In section C of foundational beliefs, I was going to quote it verbatim, but then I left the paper over there. It involves partnership and collaboration with students. That is something that in previous school systems I have not seen, that students are often taken for granted the fact that they have ideas on how to improve their own situation. And to have that be one of the foundational beliefs is important to me. And I know that the procedure isn't being discussed tonight, but I'm going to discuss it anyways. There's also the procedure that is from the work studies, where section F of that is student voice, where it quite explicitly states that equity comes alongside making sure that students have their voices heard, no matter who they are, to be able to improve their situations. And a real large part of that is what I believe is from Mr. Wiggins at the April 19th work study, is that we see disparate impacts at times, and knowing that students are often the ones that are in the best position to know when they are experiencing those disparate impacts, because adults in the room often don't recognize whether or not something that they're doing does have a disparate impact on a student. The adult might think that what they're doing is fine for the entire classroom. 25 students in the classroom might think that it's fine, but those over 3 maybe, not so fine for them. And making sure that we recognize that disparate impacts exist in this district, and that we have to rely on students oftentimes to be able to recognize what those are is important. And I do realize that there are serious concerns with this for several reasons, especially as it comes to an equity lens, but I don't think one of those concerns should be whether or not students are involved in this policy.
Thank you, June. Since you're on the dais tonight, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just going back to what Michelle said, I know Michelle has been to the majority of the work studies where this policy has been discussed. I've only been to a couple where this was discussed and other policies that have gone through this year. I think it's really important how Michelle highlighted and how you highlighted that it is a student-driven policy and how students are the main focus of what we do in the district, and how the district doesn't just come to a consensus based on what the adults are thinking in the room, but also consults. That's the reason why we're here, consulting the student board reps and collaborating with other student bodies and like various high school, middle school, and hopefully probably next year or whenever they decide to focus on to consult all the schools in the district, and how to focus more of the attention on the students and what they want and what they need. So interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Hanson, did you have anything you want to add? Then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 512, action to approve the second reading adoption of policy 3203, inclusion, diversity, and equity, passes 5-0. Thank you.
President Paul?
Yes.
It's 9:32 by policy. We need to have a board vote to continue the meeting to hit the last agenda.
Okay. I think we can do it, guys. Okay. May I please have a motion to extend our meeting since we've hit the 3-hour mark?
I move to extend. Second.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Williams seconded. I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The extension of our meeting passes 5-0. So we will now move on to agenda item 513, which is our budget status. And I know we have a lot of people leaving, but we do still have a meeting we have to run. So if you all could leave quietly, I would be very grateful because we don't want to be here any longer than we have to be either. So we would like to welcome Lori Cloud and Bill Hernandez to the front to give our budget update.
Thank you very much. Just a quick update tonight on where we're at in our budget status. There we go. Okay, just to break it down into the stats, we've been putting a lot of hours, we've been grinding through a lot of numbers, looking to get to the most precise number that we can get to for this year. But just to give you an update of where we're at. Next Tuesday, we'll be bringing to the board, we have a work study, and we'll do an in-depth look at the budget. You'll get to see actually where we sit right now and what's included in those numbers. But at a very high level right now, enrollment, we're looking at a 5% increase from the current year. This is good because this is getting us back to our pre-pandemic levels. So we're now back out of those numbers and starting to see those increases in enrollment. The demographer will be here on the 21st to give you his status of the update that you've got that report that I think was like March, April, that we received the numbers, but he's here to be giving us an update on those numbers and what the changes are from the last time he was here last year. From a revenue standpoint, our revenues are up 11%. That's good. That's a result of that increased enrollment, increased in the IPD that the state put through of 5.5% increases. And then also starting to fund that prototypical model on the safety, counseling, all of those areas that they'll be funding over the next 3 years. So that led to a pretty good 11% increase in revenue. However, right now our expenditures are at 13% increase, so not an unequal match. We're seeing payroll expenditures increases of right around, we're at 12% right now. And if you take out that $3 million contingency budget that we put in every year, we're up 7.7% from where we anticipate we're going to be this year. Some of the reasons for those expenditure increases, some of them you've already heard about as people have come to the board. You've heard Mary talk about the increase in food costs. You've heard Tom talk about the increase in fuel prices. So all of those things are having an impact on our budgets. We do have, if you recall, part of the warm safe dry that we looked at last year had to do with replacement of all the hot water heaters. That was that second part. We're looking at completing that project, and that's going to be done with the general fund. That'll be done next summer. So that's $550,000 for next year that we won't be recurring years after. But also seeing increasing in our utilities, as we're also, most of us are seeing at home. We talked about our insurance premiums being higher this next year, and also our recovery learning, which has been something we've been really focused on in making sure kiddos are back to where they were at pre-pandemic levels. We've seen a curriculum adoption topic tonight as well, so lots of different things. We are still combing through the numbers, working with departments to make sure the numbers are as tight as they can be. So next Tuesday night, we'll give you the status of where we anticipate the budget will be for next year, as well as a 3-year forecast above and beyond that. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you both. We'll move on to agenda item 6.01, which is our action to approve the consent agenda. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.01, action to approve our consent agenda?
I move to approve our consent agenda.
Second.
Vice President Miller motion, Director Wiggins seconded. I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.01, action to approve our consent agenda, passes 5-0. And that brings us to agenda item 6.02, which is our action to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 work study session. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.02, action to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 work study session?
I move to approve the May 17th work study session minutes.
Second the same.
Vice President Miller motion and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion? Since there's no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.02, action to approve the minutes of the May 17th work study session, passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.03 is action to approve the minutes of the May 24th board meeting. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.03, action to approve the minutes of the May 24th board meeting?
I move to approve the May 24 board meeting minutes.
Second the same.
Vice President Miller motion and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion? Since there's no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.03, action to approve the minutes of the May 24th board meeting, passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.04 is action to approve the minutes of the May 31st work study session. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.04, action to approve the minutes of the May 31st, 2022 work study session?
I move to approve the May 31 work study session minutes.
Second the same.
Vice President Miller motion and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion? Since there's no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.04, action to approve the minutes of the May 31st, 2022 work study session passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.05 is action to approve the minutes of the June 7th, 2022 work study session. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.05, action to approve the minutes of the June 7th, 2022 work study session?
I move to approve the June 7th work study session minutes.
Second the same.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.05, action to approve the minutes of the June 7th work study session passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.06 is action to approve the certificated personnel report. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.06, approval of our certificated personnel report?
I move to approve our certificated personnel report as revised.
Second that.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.06, approving our certificated personnel report as revised, passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.07 is action to approve our classified personnel report. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.07, approving our classified personnel report?
I move to approve our classified personnel report as revised.
Second.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have any discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.07, approving our classified personnel report, passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.08 is action to approve our coach personnel report. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.08, approving our coach personnel report?
I move to approve our coach personnel report.
Second that motion.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.08, approving our coach personnel report, passes 5-0. And for agenda item 7.01, which is board inquiry tracking system, also called BITS, Superintendent Hansen, do we have any updates?
No.
Thank you for saving us time. Okay.
Well said.
Agenda item 8.01 is adjournment, and we are going to adjourn at 9:41. Thank you, everybody who stuck around until the very end.